Welcome to This Dumb Week, a weekly live Twitter space hosted by Alex Marinos and yours truly, Dr. RollerGator. Available in podcast form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and others. Alex, welcome back. Have you had a sufficiently dumb week? All right, Alex, let's see if you remember where that mute button is. I know it's been a little while, but...
Yes, got it. Yes.
Muscle memory
well,
going.
You know, I was having a dumb week, but now that we're back and I hear that lovely chant, whatever the jingle is, I'm feeling better.
All right, you're ready to go. You're jazzed. You're pumped. You're kicking.
How old are you, Gator?
I don't know. Some days I feel like I'm 80. You know, the kids these days are getting a little bit too rambunctious, and their lingo, their slang, their jive talk is starting to become incomprehensible. You know, I'm hitting that age there where it's just all a mess. Alex, they need to get the fuck off my lawn. It will all be better
if they weren't on your lawn while doing that.
Exactly. They need to get the fuck off my lawn. You are 100% correct. Well, you know, I actually want to start off this week with a story that's more silly, but is also great at the same time. It's not technically dumb. It's rather endearing, if I may, if I have your permission, Alex.
I will allow it.
Scary situation in Westlake yesterday. Police and the family of a 91-year-old woman unable to get a hold of her. But officers never could have imagined what they were about to find when they went to check things out. Our Scott Knoll explains.
Westlake police at the home of a 91-year-old woman Thursday night.
783, garage doors open. We're gonna make entry.
Police, her family, all unable to get a hold of the homeowner.
And vehicles in the garage.
The woman, a part of the city's Are You OK program. This time, another woman not answering the call.
Everyone's a little bit alarmed that she was missing these contacts.
What would police find this time?
Westlake police!
To protect the woman's identity, police didn't release any more of that video. But what happens next, no one would have guessed.
Turned out to be all okay. Everyone got a good laugh out of it.
Police found her all right in her room. We'll let the officers called to dispatch explain the rest.
We're here with her now. She's playing video games in her bedroom.
Police say not just playing video games, but trying to beat her record level, officers say. In the process, missing those attempts to check in on her. But we're told thankful police came out. In Westlake, I'm News 5 investigator Scott Knoll.
There's something so wonderful about hearing that a 91-year-old was lost in the game trying to beat her high score, that she ignored all of her family and they thought she was dead. That is... Now, the curiosity got the best of me. I had to know. I had to find out what game was she so entrenched in. And according to the Washington Post, under the title, "Police Rushed to Check on 91-year-old and Found Her Gaming," they state the woman was alive, well and unbothered, absorbed in what officers could only describe as a bubble pop game on her phone. She didn't even hear the officers enter her home and announce themselves. She was, to quote the vernacular, locked in to beat her previous high score. Gamers call it the zone. But what game held this woman in its thrall? When I was putting this info out, I asked our officer saying, "Hey, I know everyone's going to ask me this question," Westlake Police spokesman Captain Gerald Vogel said. He just said it's some type of bubble pop game. He didn't know which one. The tension broke immediately and the officers laughed. The woman, whom police have not named, apologized for the unintended harm. Case closed, high score pending. That was my favorite story of the week. It's short, sweet, but it's endearing. It's well-rounded, and I hope that she actually does get her high score and tell her family to buzz off. She's busy.
Excellent. Yes. I mean, it's like a, you know, I frequently wonder, you know, if you reach 90, like, why not go on a heroin bender? Like, it's not like it's going to reduce your life expectancy. I mean, it probably will, but you know, whatever. I guess like the grandma took the same course and went on a video game bender, which is, I think, totally, you know, earned.
Yes. So that was my favorite story of the week. So get that. It's short. Get it out of the way, because we do have an incredible amount of dumb ahead of us. Followed by this next story from CNN. involving the FAA and pilots who are not behaving as they should.
This is an emergency aviation radio frequency, and somebody on it is meowing like a cat. That audio, captured near Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, is highlighting a running joke on aviation radio that many pilots and air traffic controllers say simply is not all that funny.
Guys, you need to be professional pilots.
That frequency, 121.5, is meant for emergency calls when other radio signals fail. But instead of distress calls, it's sometimes filled with this random chatter. And the fear is that pilots will begin turning it down or tuning it out, meaning they could miss an actual emergency in progress. It's not clear how all this started, but the thinking is this goes back to the 2002 movie Super Troopers. There's a bit in the movie where the characters insert meow into conversations.
All right, meow, where were we? Are you saying meow? Am I saying meow?
It is not just meowing. All of this is against FAA and FCC rules, and there are fines for violators that exceed $19,000. The problem is, it's really hard to find out who is doing this. There's no caller ID on aviation radio, so unless somebody fesses up and lets the cat out of the bag.
Now, I do request that we arrest that CNN host for his pun at the end, because that was a criminally bad pun, but... future arrests notwithstanding for the pun, apparently this has been going on for quite some time, and it's just this random meowing and barking heard on the emergency station. Now, I think that does classify.
I love that when there's laws that, you know, by construction are impossible to enforce. Yep. It's like, we will make this illegal, but we have absolutely no way of catching you. Here's a big nominal fine that you'll never pay.
Well, that in the game theoretic version of law and economics is why certain penalties wind up increasing, because the probability of catching a perpetrator and thus having a negative incentive structure is changed by the rate of capture, and so harsher and harsher penalties get enacted in order to try to offset and compensate for the difficulty in apprehension.
All right.
So now, keeping in line with some of the animal shenanigans, Alex, I don't know if this has come across your timeline. From the New York Post, RFK Jr. once chopped off a dead raccoon's penis to study later while on a family trip. I don't know if this... storyline that you had picked up on,
as opposed to what studying now, like.
Well, if we go over the last couple of years of RFK Jr. news, let's see. He beheaded a whale and drove with it on the top of his car, and his kids reported that the juices from the dead whale were leaking inside the vehicle. I believe that was a story that was had at one point. There was another story where he had found a dead bear cub and then took a bicycle that was also had been in a wreck and then placed it in the middle of Central Park together. So the idea would be that people found it and had to assume that the bear had been riding the bicycle and got into a wreck. There's a lot of curious RFK Jr. Animal related stories out there, Alex, and I don't know how many more we're going to get, but I was not expecting the dead raccoon science project story to come in this week.
But I mean, what is going on with him? Is this like some kind of sense of humor that he has, or? I mean, I know he's like super into nature and like, I don't know, animal cruelty or something, but I'm bad. Like, how do these stories keep coming out? Is what I'm trying to say. What is going on?
Is it fair to say that perhaps we can, the thing that will never change in the annals of history when it comes to this administration is that it is by far the most idiosyncratic administration. Every single person who has been hired.
Say that again.
It is the most idiosyncratic administration in history. I don't think that can ever be deprived of it.
I was not being literal, but I'll accept it. Yeah, no, it is. It is a very odd bunch, I could say.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., an avid animal genitalia researcher in his spare time, once pulled the family sedan to the side of the road after spying a dead raccoon and swiftly cut off its sex organs so he could study them later. The bizarre account by the nation's top civilian health official was unearthed in the book RFK Jr., The Fall and Rise, authored by the Post's own Isabel Vincent, who drew upon a wide range of sources, including private journals he penned while living in New York City between 1999 and 2001. Quote, I was standing in front of my parked car on I-684 cutting the penis out of a road-killed raccoon, thinking about how weird some of my family members have turned out to be. Reads a surreal passage in which the Health and Human Services head, 72, was reportedly lamenting his rocky relationships with his brother Douglas Kennedy and cousin Bobby Shriver. My kids waited patiently in the car, he noted, later telling People magazine he collected the raccoon's genitals so he could, quote, study them later. The eccentric Kennedy scion's bizarre recollection adds to the laundry list of grisly encounters with animal parts he's had over the years. His daughter, Kick Kennedy, recalled a 2012 interview with Town and Country magazine that her father's fascination with animal viscera once put a smelly damper on a childhood family vacation in Hyannisport, Massachusetts. Upon learning of a whale carcass, what I referred to earlier, had washed ashore on nearby Squaw Island, the elder Kennedy made a beeline for the beach and proceeded to decapitate the beast with a chainsaw. He then strapped the whale's enormous noggin to the roof of the family minivan with a bungee cord, intending once again to bring it home to study, grossing out the family in his dogged pursuit of knowledge. Quote, every time we accelerated on the highway, whale juice would pour into the windows of the car, and it was the rankest thing on the planet, she told the magazine. Quote, we all had plastic bags over our heads with mouth holes cut out, and people on the highway were giving us the finger, but that's just the normal day-to-day stuff for us. In 2024, while briefly running for president, Kennedy admitted to the New Yorker magazine that a decade earlier he had dumped a dead bear-cub, again, something I had mentioned, in Central Park after a botched attempt to skin it. In an apparent effort to preempt the article's imminent publication, Kennedy admitted in a video on social media that he had and some buddies had been drinking when they hatched the scheme to ditch the cub's body and make it look like he got hit by a bike. Claimed he found the killed cub while on a falconing trip in Goshen, New York. Last year, after President Trump nominated Kennedy to lead HHS, his cousin Carolyn Kennedy claimed in a letter to lawmakers that while in college he put chicks and mice in a blender to feed his hawks, called his dorm room a perverse scene of despair and violence, according to reports in the Telegraph. So far, the results of the Kennedys' rigorous whalehead and raccoon penis studies have not been publicly disclosed. So there's...
We need the data. I think RFK should...
It's not peer-reviewed yet.
Give a good example.
You know,
give the example for all the data he wants HHS to release and just release his own studies. I don't understand it. It is not, you know, if somebody says to you, oh, you know, in Bhutan people do this or that, you could say, oh, well, you know, like it's not familiar to my experience, but, you know, I could understand that because it's, you know, a completely different culture. Like how different could this man's upbringing have been that this is somehow within the realm of the thinkable? I mean, forget doing it, just like conceiving of it.
He's a culture unto himself. It seems that he has proclivities that are unique to his person and they're not shared by his associates. Except for maybe the bear-cub thing. That does kind of sound like a funny prank that maybe like 20-year-olds would do. I don't know his age at the time that he did it, but maybe he was just, you know, a very old child. Now, I have some good news for you, Alex, or at least temporarily good news that could turn south, but it would be par for the course if it turns south, not necessarily a brand new set of bad circumstances. But this is from Axios. We have Trump suffers rare defeat with House Republicans. The House GOP revolt on FISA Friday wasn't just a setback for Speaker Mike Johnson. It's a rare defeat for President Trump within his own party. Trump usually delivers House Republicans on big votes. This time he couldn't, exposing the limits of his influence and leaving Johnson exposed. Charging ahead on a clean extension of Section 702 was a White House call, but some of Trump's closest allies refused to budge on the long-held beliefs around the national security tool. More than 24 Republicans voted down 2 separate procedural votes early Friday morning, once unheard of for members in the majority, but now an increasingly common tactic. The failure that left GOP leaders with no choice but to fall back on a 10-day extension of the spy powers program, their last resort option. The White House, in tandem with GOP leadership, mounted an intense pressure campaign to convince holdouts to come on board. It ultimately fell short. They brought CIA Director John Ratcliffe to address Republicans at their weekly meeting Tuesday, held numerous briefings at the White House solely for Republican holdouts, and even set up a makeshift skiff off the House floor to streamline access to classified info during whipping. After explicitly pushing for a clean extension, GOP leaders in White House softened their stance and agreed to entertain changes to appease conservatives. But it wasn't enough to get it over the finish line. On almost every issue, Trump has successfully bent House Republicans to his will. Johnson's legislative strategy has depended on it. There's often drama on the floor during tough votes, but the conference typically falls in line. On FISA, the White House and Johnson couldn't close the deal. Some members say the White House came to the table too late on FISA, an issue they knew would be a heavy lift. Rushed talks, 1 a.m. votes, and last-minute changes that didn't fully address concerns doomed the effort, Representative Ralph Norman, who voted against the rule, told Axios. Still, Norman said he's confident a deal can come together in the next 2 weeks. Quote, "This is not an accurate characterization of White House involvement at all. The administration has been engaged on this issue for months. We have had multiple briefings from senior officials, both House and Senate side, about the importance of this program," a senior White House official told Axios. The official shared a list of over a dozen FISA briefings for lawmakers dating back to early February, noting the list does not include the numerous phone calls and meetings between the White House and different congressional stakeholders over the last 6 months. FISA always exposes deep, hard-to-bridge divides among lawmakers. Adding warrant requirements risks losing intelligence hawks. Falling short alienates privacy-minded conservatives. Some conservatives also injected 11th-hour demands, pushing to attach unrelated measures like anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. Johnson will have to find a way to unite his fractured conference and make sure the White House and Senate stay on board in the next 12 days. And Trump will need to prove his sway hasn't slipped. So there's some positive news that the FISA renewal process is not going easily, and maybe perhaps, if we're lucky, it will go away or have to be reformulated in some way that isn't a complete secret spy mission where, as we know from before, it was weaponized against the president himself in his first term. So, Alex.
Sometimes I've started to take seriously the potential that, everything we're looking at is some sort of a projection of a very different sort of plot line that is taking place, away from the lights of publicity. And when we're seeing not even a projection, a virtualization of it, some semblance of a story that has the same rough contours, but like completely inverted roles and whatever, in order to like vaguely make sense, but not really. So that, everybody keeps moving on without revolting or something, because this makes no sense. I mean, okay, let me put it this way. Every time you see both Republicans and Democrats before the election saying some pretty extreme things, and that's not to say like unjustified, but definitely pretty out there about the kind of abuses that the other side is going to visit upon the population were they to be elected, and this is why you need to vote for them. But not to my memory have I ever seen them saying, "Hey, if those other guys are going to come in power, maybe what we could do is pull back power from the executive, say, in order for them to do less bad things." So this is another step in the same pattern where, Trump supposedly was against all this spying and stuff, especially for himself, and had experienced it, and he was going to be a real champion. And here he is, failing, but attempting to pass. Another ridiculous thing where it's, one of the talking points is like, well, we couldn't possibly have a warrant. The thing that the Constitution requires? Yes, that is the negotiation point. Are we going to go with it or not? Apparently, couldn't possibly. Okay. And another favorite from what you read was kind of amazing. They had to set up a makeshift skiff in order to streamline the freaking out, which is what people do when they go into skiffs. They're like, look, there's 6 terrorists right now headed on a plane on the United States. If we can't spy on them, what are we going to do? Here they are. Here's a live stream of them. Here's their life, or whatever it is they do in the skiff. But of course, they couldn't leave that skiff there, right? For example, if lawmakers need to on demand have access to confidential information. No, that doesn't that is not a feature of the legislative process. They added that there for this one right now and can proceed to take it away. I don't know. This whole thing's so fucking stupid. I just can't.
Well, can you imagine how much more convenient it would be if we could quarter soldiers in people's homes and just have them report to us what's going on inside? That way we have a little bit more of ability to, get the terrorists before they act, right? We can just start quartering people in suspected terrorist homes. I think that'll be
drawing and quartering even.
Yeah. So now that was a story about, one group of chimps arguing and fighting it out in the Congress there. But we have an actual, related story from 404 Media, world's largest group of chimps waging deadly civil war, scientists discover. Scientists have observed an extremely rare chimpanzee civil war, a conflict that has killed at least 7 adults and 17 infants, which sheds new light on the nature of warfare in humans, according to a study published Thursday in Science. Male chimpanzees are often aggressive to outsiders, but it's unusual for chimps to kill former members of their own social groups. Though Jane Goodall and her colleagues observed one famous example, the Gomba chimpanzee war of the 1970s, which resulted in 7 adult deaths, is estimated that these violent episodes occur only once every 500 years based on genetic analysis of chimpanzee lineages. Now, a team led by Aaron Sandel, an associate professor of anthropology at the University of Texas at Austin, has reported a far more deadly group fissure among the Ngogo chimpanzees of Uganda. This population exceeds 200 individuals at one point, making it the largest group of chimpanzees ever observed in the wild. But over the past decade, the chimps have fractured into 2 factions, one of which has staged multiple lethal raids on the other. Quote, certainly these are not strangers, said Sandel in a call with 404 Media. These are chimps that once knew each other, and we know that for certain. The Ngogo group have been studied since the 1970s by primatologists like Thomas Schuster and has been intensively observed since 1995 as part of the Ngogo Chimpanzee Project set up by David Watts and John Mitani. For more than 3 decades, researchers from around the world have convened to watch the group during summer field expeditions, while Ugandan research assistants have maintained a continuous presence at the site. Because of this long-standing observation, Sandel said, researchers were able to be on the ground witnessing every moment as the deadly chimp war unfolded. This group has always had distinct subpopulations that spent more time together, including the western and central clusters. Even so, before the fissure, the clusters regularly overlapped for shared activities like grooming, patrolling, and interbreeding. Sandel vividly remembers the exact day this dynamic had noticeably shifted, June 24th, 2015. He was following the western cluster, which was at the center of its neighborhood territory. They hear chimps from the central neighborhood nearby, and they go quiet, he recalled. They seem nervous. They're touching each other with this reassurance that they typically do when they hear the outsider chimps. But I was just alone with them. I remember just in that moment being really puzzled and focused, like, what's going on? They could have reunited and done what's typical, screaming and charging around, maybe some slapping, and then come together, sit together, groom, and maybe go about their separate ways after, because they'd already started to be a bit more disconnected. But instead of reuniting in typical chimpanzee fusion fashion, the western chimpanzees ran and the central chimps chased them. What started as a weird vibe transformed into weeks-long chill between the groups, followed by a temporary thaw. Ultimately, the tension spiraled into bloody conflicts. You act like a stranger, you become a stranger, Sandel said. It seemed that planted the seed of polarization. Over the course of the next few years, the males in each cluster began to treat each other like outsiders. The last offspring that had parents from different clusters was conceived in March 2015. The western and central chimps were fully separated by 2018. The western chimps, despite being smaller in number, have since amped up hostilities by staging 24 violent attacks against their former kin, killing at least 7 mature males and 17 infants from the central cluster. The death toll may be well higher, but some deaths and disappearances cannot be conclusively attributed to the conflict. Now, Alex, as of yet, there is no known connection between this and Gamergate, but As are most things that started in 2015, they can be traced to Gamergate, but I still have not yet seen that connection. So the Civil War in the United States might have its traces back to Gamergate if you listen to the lore, but I don't know about this chimpanzee fracturing.
Maybe Harambe had something to do with it. I don't know. Have we checked?
Harambe was a moment where everyone was on edge. So yeah, I know that you're really looking for another war to focus on. So I was hoping that perhaps we could bring in this chimpanzee war and keep up with it as time goes on to see how it's faring.
Yes.
It's going to be interesting because I don't know where the propaganda for the sides is going to come from or what form it's going to take in order to, gather steam for one side over another or try to, kill morale on one side.
I imagine if they discover the media and their ability to manipulate.
I mean, it's very possible they have their own analog. That we would find some sort of analogous system of communication that they have that is meant to instill fear or bolster spirits on either side.
All right. So who do you predict is going to prevail in this one?
I have no stake in the game yet. No horse in the race. No other analogy that I can't come up with at the moment to describe being in the middle of this.
And before we move on,
yes,
is there a what is the prediction market called now? I'm blocked.
We got Poly Market. We got Kalshi.
Is there a poly market for this? That's the important part.
I don't know. So we were up to 24 violent attacks that have already occurred. Perhaps we can we could do a poly market or a Kalshi on where the total number of deaths would stand, or when a peace agreement might be signed, when a ceasefire might be agreed upon. We could possibly think of many ways.
Oh my God, Gator! What we have to do is get this to Trump's attention so he can add it to the wars he stopped. Yes, that will bring peace. That will bring peace among the chimps. That'll be great. The talking points are going to be so much funnier. I've stopped the wars between Burma and Tajikistan, plus let's not forget the chimps. And absolutely, it will bring Rogan back on side. So I think that's definitely important for the midterms. I don't know, and I think we've got a real move here for the Republican coalition. You're very much onto something, sir. Now there's been a lot of news this year, and I've discussed my inability to keep up with it all and get through the stacks of stuff that I have. But there are times I like to go back and bring something up that maybe got on the cutting room floor, or something that I have recently discovered that I missed at the time that it was occurring. And this is one such event, Alex. I think that you will find this particular story rather fascinating. It is a story of long-lasting and rampant police corruption in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that has just been coming to light. And I think you will find the scheme rather interesting as the story plays out. I'll play the clip now from KOB in New Mexico.
For months now, we've had no movement on our 4 Investigates Clear Deception board. But tonight, we have a new pin. Another officer is pleading guilty in one of the biggest scandals in New Mexico law enforcement history. And another more sinister layer. Tonight, former APD Lieutenant Justin Hunt admits to essentially fishing for drunk drivers he would later let off the hook.
So the deception involves a night of drinking with Thomas Clear III's paralegal, Rick Mendez, and a target who had no idea they were being set up to get arrested and then sucked right into the DWI deception.
Morgan Stevens spent the day going through Hunt's plea deal. So Morgan, what all does it reveal?
Tessa, Zach, Justin Hunt right here, he was the first to resign when it came to the scheme, but he is the 10th law enforcement officer to plead guilty now. His plea unlocks a new level of DWI deception. Lieutenant Justin Hunt, a decades-long veteran of APD, confessed to his role in a DWI bribery scheme that involved law and order. Hunt was among the officers implicated in a scheme that the FBI and prosecutors say made big money for defense attorney Thomas Clear III and his paralegal Ricardo Mendez. According to court documents, Hunt said finding drunk drivers didn't always happen by accident. Mendez and others would go out drinking with a person until they were drunk. Someone would tip off Hunt. Once that person got behind the wheel, he would pull them over. The driver would be steered toward hiring Clear. Hunt says he wouldn't show up to court, and a judge or prosecutors would have to toss the case. Hunt says he received money and gifts in exchange. The court documents go into detail about one incident from May of 2014, when Hunt says he pulled over a client Mendez took to a strip club for their birthday and let Hunt know their location. This is just one of the many incidents we have heard about during our investigation. Last May, former APD Chief Harold Medina sat down with 4 Investigates about how far back this scandal goes.
Some of the things that have enabled us to get to this point of exposing something that's been hidden for possibly as long as 22 years, 16 years that we know for sure now, that in order for us to have gotten to that point, we had to have started doing things right and creating processes that stop misconduct.
Hunt's attorney says Hunt's guilty plea doesn't change his service. The conduct he took responsibility for represents a tiny fraction of the work he did for the community. Attorney Thomas Clear, the mastermind behind this scandal, is scheduled to be back in court in mid-February for a case update. As of right now, there isn't a set date for his sentencing, and no one who has pleaded guilty has been sentenced. You can find our full 4 Investigates reporting, including an interactive case walkthrough similar to this, at KOB.com. Back to you.
So I found that particularly fascinating, Alex. One, the longevity is, a point in my everlasting, evergreen sort of observation that situations like this are rampant, and it is not that criminal conspiracies are exceptionally fragile, as most people like to believe whenever they like to throw around the pejorative of conspiracy theorizing, calling people a conspiracy theorist whenever they are under the impression that shenanigans are going on, despite lack of concrete evidence to prove the case to whoever they are speaking to, or whoever's listening to them speak at the time. But that situations like this are far less fragile than people like to imagine, and they occur so regularly. The Elizabeth Holmes company scheme, the Theranos scheme, being another example that I like to refer to for it being so long lasting and so many people involved who could have blown the whistle at any time and did not blow the whistle on the fraud that was going on in there. This scheme with actual law enforcement agents participating, a large web of people who are participating in this scheme, nobody coming forward despite it being their job to uphold the law. I just don't think that these types of conspiracies are particularly fragile, despite that being taught in most poli-sci courses. Let's find that mute button, Alex. Come on back.
All right. I was being suppressed by my own mute button. I have a censorship incident to report. This concept that, unless it's, proven, it's not valid, right? Has so many L's in its name but somehow it keeps coming back, because obviously the source for said hypothesis is not really evidence, but more, I think, a need for, cognitive dissonance to shut up. They're walking around the world with the understanding that what you see might not be true at all times, and what's more, could be nefariously off, right? It could be, things could be substantially worse than they look. Is really painful. Like, it's, it can be debilitating, because it makes you sort of think twice and 3 times and over, and you might not even get anywhere. so even the benefit is questionable, but but some people react to that with just saying like anybody who talks about this stuff is my enemy, effectively. Even though, I mean, the examples, it's embarrassing. I mean, everybody knows about cases where people collude in secret for illicit purposes, or even not for illicit purposes, just coordinate in secret for various reasons, right? I mean, we all have chat rooms where we coordinate, and that coordination is not known to other people, like not necessarily for nefarious reasons, but because we don't just announce what we talk with our friends about or whatever. And that's just like normal people. You could get significantly more nefarious than that. So I don't know. It's very odd to me. And while I usually hate psychologizing, I don't know how else to handle it.
Well, I did find that particular instance of a scandal pretty fascinating, where you have the attorney who has a paralegal go out and basically encourage people to drink and drive and ride along with them as their friend. When they get pulled over, the police are in on the game. They encourage and nudge that person that they are arresting for DUI to the attorney. Then after they become a client for that attorney, the cop does not show up for the trial, and everyone's getting kickbacks all around. It's actually a very interesting, in some ways, it's bad, but it's pretty clever, right? Particularly if there's no mechanism that makes an observation that whenever someone has this particular attorney, the cops fail to show up for the cases, like regularly. There's no oversight, no people looking at the system as a whole to say like, hey, this is a little of an odd anomaly here. Hey, Frank, how come you never show up to cases for these DUIs that you bust? What's going on here? These people are getting off because you're never showing up. Any explanation for that? That part fascinates me.
And what's incredible is that, how many points of contact there are, right? So obviously the person being charged is being told about one level of the deception, right? Mm-hmm. The attorney says, look, man, you slip me a couple of bucks and I'll make sure the officer doesn't show up, right? That must be the deal there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're being, a level of the deception is being revealed to them, but another level, which is the buddy you were drinking with that got you caught because they were, clearly coordinating with a cop, that part is not revealed, presumably.
Right.
So, there's like layers and layers of, it's almost like a limited hangout is being used to extract the gains without revealing the entire plot. So it's surprisingly sophisticated when you see it that way. And it's done for what? I mean, a few hundred bucks, like $1,000, like how much money could they be getting out of this?
Well, I mean, it also has the secondary effect of giving that attorney a very, very high win ratio, right? Like he can go and advertise.
Benefits all around.
Yeah, he can go out and advertise. Look at my win rate. 99% of my DUI cases are tossed out of court. Like, that's a pretty good win ratio,
Per word spoken at trials, I dominate because I usually don't say anything. I just don't show up.
So I thought that what happened back in February, or at least that story was back in February. But I thought it was interesting enough to bring up and highlight because the dynamics were interesting. Plus, it fits the theme of something we always discuss, which is how often people are engaged in conspiracy, criminal conspiracy, not just conspiracy in general. Because as I always say, people are conspiring all day, every day.
Look, the surprising thing here is not that they engaged in conspiracy, it's that they got caught. And somehow it made the news. To me, that's a shocking part. The rest is like, yeah, sure. I mean, I believe it.
Now we move on to a little bit of, let's say, entertainment news. But it ties in to some congressional news that also occurs because there are parallels in some of the stories here. But this is some law and crime coverage of some Katy Perry recent events.
Actress Ruby Rose has accused pop singer Katy Perry of sexual assault at a nightclub in Australia about 20 years ago. This is big news. And what has really made this big news is this has now reportedly prompted an official police investigation over there, which I want to explore with an expert in a little bit about how this might happen. But what started this, right? So Ruby Rose, who is best known for films like Resident Evil, John Wick, Pitch Perfect, The Meg, she took to Threads regarding Katy Perry. And it was regarding Katy Perry reacting to Justin Bieber's Coachella performance. And Ruby Rose goes to Threads and reportedly writes, Katy Perry sexually assaulted me at Spice Market nightclub in Melbourne. Who gives a bleep what she thinks? Now, she followed that up with, I'm now 40. It has taken almost 2 decades to say this publicly. Though I am so grateful to have made it long enough to find my voice, it just shows how much of an impact trauma and sexual assault takes. Thank you for seeing me. Now, there's a lot more that I'm going to get into here, but there was a representative for Katy Perry fired back in a statement saying the allegations being circulated on social media by Ruby Rose about Katy Perry are not only categorically false, they are dangerous, reckless lies. Miss Rose has a well-documented history of making serious public allegations on social media against various individuals, claims that have repeatedly been denied by those named. Now, I don't believe that was in direct reference to something specific, but to provide a little bit of context here, it was a few years ago when Ruby Rose left the CW's Batwoman show and would make allegations of a hostile work environment and misconduct, targeted producers and executives, which, by the way, Warner Brothers responded at the time saying this was a form of, quote, revisionist history, claimed that she was let go, that she was fired from this project, quote, based on multiple complaints about workplace behavior. But I want to go back to Ruby Rose and Katy Perry. So in another post, Rose alleged that Perry, quote, saw me resting on my best friend's lap to avoid her and bent down, pulled her underwear to the side and rubbed her disgusting, let's just say, private parts on my face until my eyes snapped open and I projectile vomited on her. Very descriptive, very specific, okay? Now, Rose also posted that, quote, as a woman, for a myriad of reasons, opening up about W on W, women on women, violence and sexual abuse seems to be 100 times harder than speaking about the male predators, at least for me. And then there was a major update. Rose posted on Threads, today I will be walking into a police station to see if any of my experiences can be investigated. I imagine they are past their statute of limitations, but all the more reason to try. What is interesting is that she had previously posted that she wasn't interested in reporting this to police. Actually, she apparently posted that Perry, quote, is more than welcome to sue me. She won't because it happened. I have photos and it was literally in public and witnessed by multiple.
Now, Alex, you and I have a wide network of people in various places who are able to give us information that sometimes is not publicly available, that not widely known. We have an extensive social network. And well, we here at This Dumb Week have an insider in that Australian investigation, and we've obtained a leak investigative interview with Ms. Perry.
Ms. Perry, please have a seat. I'm sure you've been told why we asked you to come in today for an interview. We have received some allegations and need your help in sorting things out, okay?
I have nothing to hide.
Ms. Perry, I want to help you here, but I need you to be honest.
I am being honest.
I would like to believe that, but I need you to walk me through something here. Are these your words? This was never the way I planned, not my intention.
Wait.
I got so brave, drink in hand, lost my discretion. It's not what I'm used to. Just want to try you on.
You don't understand.
I'm curious for you. Caught my attention. I kissed a girl and I liked it. The taste of her cherry chapstick. I kissed a girl just to try it. Now, Ms. Perry, I want to help you out. I really do. But I don't see anything in what you've written here that indicates this activity was consensual. If you tell the truth, I can help you. If you lie, I can't.
So, Alex, I think Ms. Perry there is going to be in a bit of trouble when it comes to this investigation. I don't know if if you think her alibis are going to stand up.
Is this 20 years ago? We're saying
it is 20 years ago. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, who the hell knows, right? It's definitely very suspicious when people show up like 20 years later and have things to say. I don't know. But it is funny.
There is an aspect to that. You say suspicious. You say suspicious. I just want to point out that it could be a normal byproduct of complexity in those scenarios and the social consequences of someone making a claim, or the cost that it is to someone to go through the effort of making a claim. And at the time that they might find themselves a victim, the pressure on them to come forward might be too much for them at the time for them to want to bear, thus creating the delay that winds up being suspicious later on.
I will say something though. And I'm not a big Katy Perry fan, so I don't have the timelines handy, just at my fingertips. But this is findable. I believe Katy Perry came up through the Christian pop sort of scene, which would make this even funnier had it occurred as described.
Well, I'm not familiar with her coming up through the Christian scene, but there's some additional details that I was aware of, in that this is not the first time that she's been accused of it being inappropriate sexually with people. So I'm going to play just a little bit more of some of the story that's evolved from this outcome here.
I want to go to what I believe is Ruby Rose's latest response, posted online, quote, "Hi, last update on this. As of this afternoon, I have finalized all of my reports. This means I am no longer able to comment, repost, or talk publicly about any of those cases or the individuals involved. It's going to look like 1 a.m. ignoring everything from supportive messages to other people's experiences, but I'm not. This is a standard request from the police, and in many ways, quite the relief. I can start the healing process now and temporarily move forward. I love you all so much." And guess what? This is the big update. According to KTLA5, quote, "Melbourne's Sexual Offences and Child Abuse Investigation Team detectives are investigating a historical sexual assault that occurred in Melbourne in 2010. Police have been told the incident occurred at a licensed premises in Melbourne's CBD. As the investigation remains ongoing, it would be inappropriate to comment further at this stage." The reported ex-manager of the Melbourne nightclub Spice Market, which has since closed its doors, claimed that the night of the incident that Rose is describing, he doesn't know of anything like that happening. He claimed they came in together. They were also with Katie's hair and makeup girl and another guy who was friends with Ruby. It was a security nightmare because there were 600 people there, and Katie kept coming out and dancing with everybody and going right in the middle of the mosh pit. They were in the Genie bottle, so that's apparently the VIP room, and having drinks and stuff, but were mainly in there doing their own thing. I wasn't aware of any alleged assault or someone vomiting. He claimed that Rose and Perry were both, quote, drunk, but, quote, weren't paralytic or anything. Both had way too much to drink. To avoid people taking photos of them in a state, we organized a car and driver to be waiting outside the Collins Street entrance of the hotel. We escorted them out the back and up the fire exit and put them in the car together. By the way, it's a bummer. One more thing I got to call out. Certain things have come into focus or have been getting this renewed attention since these allegations from Ruby Rose, like actress Anna Kendrick. So she joked on a 2014 appearance with Conan O'Brien that Perry had inappropriately touched her cleavage during what she described as a weird night 2019. Actor Josh Kloss, who apparently appeared in Perry's Teenage Dream music video, accused her not only of verbal abuse, but claimed that she took his private part out at a party without his consent. Georgian Russian television host Tina Kendalaki accused Perry of inappropriately touching and kissing her. 2018, while serving as a judge on American Idol, Perry reportedly kissed contestant Benjamin Glaze on the lips, which he later said he didn't see it as sexual harassment, but apparently he did say that.
Now, Alex, you did share with me just the Wikipedia entry for Miss Katy Perry here, and it says an album, unlike subsequent albums that made her known worldwide, primarily incorporates Christian pop and Christian rock with elements of alternative rock and pop rock and lyrical themes of childhood, adolescence, and Hudson's faith in God. It sold between 100 and 200 copies before Red Hill went bankrupt 9 months later and received mixed reviews. This was the Katie Hudson album. It's a debut studio album. So, Alex, thank you for educating us on that. Now, you have not yet
200 sales.
You have not mentioned that Miss Katy Perry was once married to Russell Brand.
I did not. No.
And that is...
Because I did not know this.
You did not know this? Okay, yes.
No.
Yes, I believe it might have been during his extreme drug use years that she was, or at least part of her marriage to him was...
So he might not remember it, is what you're saying.
I think he has a vague recollection. He's mentioned it from time to time that he used to be married to Katy Perry. Before
the discography that is being formulated here is incredible. Where in 2001 she puts out an album under a different name, which is okay. I don't know what that's all about. The 2001 album again is a Christian pop album, and then there's a 6-year silence until the breakout hit "You're So Gay." Anyway,
she was reborn as most Christians wind up becoming at some point, born again, and now this time she's possibly
born again,
a rampant sexual predator. Maybe that's how she was.
I mean, yeah. Again, it's hard to judge from limited data points, this limited, but I don't know. Would you say this shows some sort of shape-shifting capability there? Maybe a little bit. I don't know.
I mean, there is a lot of people who like to try to find an angle and stick to it. And her former husband, Russell Brand, I would say is one of those people. I've never followed Russell Brand particularly closely, but the osmosis through which I absorb understanding of Mr. Russell Brand is that he at some point decided to become a Christian, but then also the type of Christian that hawks healing crystal amulet necklaces.
I recently dodged the Tucker episode where they talk about demon possession, I believe. So you see, the problem with his marriage with Katy Perry is that their Christianities didn't synchronize.
Now he might have corrupted her. She might have corrupted him. It's really hard to say. But I don't think at the time that they were married, he had the magic healing crystal amulets. So it's perhaps that he just did not have the ability to overcome.
For want of an amulet. Is that what their marriage went south? I think.
Yes. Exactly. Now, this is a similar theme to some other news this week, where we have here Eric Swalwell, who has found himself in a similar situation. There have been multiple women, some anonymous, some non-anonymous, coming out and saying that he was inappropriate with them in various ways. Some of the inappropriate allegations of inappropriateness are, let's say, on the more mundane side, which is just, let's say, unwanted advances that did not escalate to anything truly alarming, but extramarital as the scandals go in Washington. But there are accusers. I can't assess their credibility at this time, but are accusers who have gone on the record with some harsher allegations.
He raped me, and he choked me. And while he was choking me, I lost consciousness. And I thought I died. I did not consent to any sexual activity. Although I did not undergo a rape kit at the time, I disclosed the assault to the people closest to me. I also recorded these events in my handwritten calendar. The assault and its impact were later documented during my therapy sessions at a sexual assault center in Connecticut. It had a profound impact on my mental health. I self-medicated in an unhealthy way. I did not want to live anymore. I cried all the time for years. At the time, I was in a dating relationship with a boyfriend I was fully committed to. I've never cheated in my life, and I would never have engaged in a consensual sexual encounter with Eric Swalwell.
Now, these allegations to the average person out there came, sort of out of nowhere and accumulated over several days, which does suggest in some way that there was political activity involved in gathering all of these people and trying to coordinate their coming out all together to go after Mr. Swalwell. Mr. Swalwell was running for governor of California and has since pulled away from that campaign. But that is not the only thing that he has done.
Other breaking story, the stunning fall tonight. Democrat Congressman Eric Swalwell, who was near the top of the race for California governor, pulling out of the race, and then just a short time ago revealing he is resigning now from Congress after multiple allegations of sexual misconduct. What he's now saying tonight, and here's Rachel Scott.
He was a leading candidate in the California governor's race, one of the most prominent Democrats in Congress. But tonight, Eric Swalwell's campaign is over. And just moments ago, he announced his career in the House is too. Swalwell will resign his seat amid a flurry of sexual misconduct allegations. Allegations he has denied.
These allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They are absolutely false. They did not happen.
The San Francisco Chronicle and CNN reporting 4 women accused Swalwell of inappropriate behavior. One former staffer telling CNN Swalwell sexually assaulted her twice in 2019 and again in 2024.
I can recall I was pushing him off of me saying no.
ABC News has not been able to independently verify the woman's claims. The congressman calls the allegations false.
I've certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past, but those mistakes are between me and my wife. And to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position.
For days, top Democrats and dozens of current and former Swalwell staffers demanding he resign. And tonight, it happened. The congressman writing, "I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. It's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties."
There was immense pressure on Swalwell to resign. Even a number of Democrats said that they would have supported a move to expel him from Congress. It is a remarkable fall for someone who was once considered a star of the Democratic Party, David.
Rachel Scott.
Now, Alex, I'm sure you remember Eric Swalwell probably most famously for being caught up with a woman named Christina Fong, who was sort of a CCP spy who was he was likely having a romantic affair with, and that was a bit of a controversy. But in the recent weeks, not the only thing that I have been able to see concretely is that he was engaged with people who might be considered escorts or ladies of the night, and being flirtatious and sexual in hotel rooms. I have not specifically seen any concrete evidence of a violent sexual assault nature to corroborate any of those allegations.
Yeah. It's always hard to know these things, just because, it's frequent that when the ball gets rolling, you get, hangers on or whatever, bandwagon jumpers. Obviously we could do more research and get a better feel. But I mean, I don't know. Swalwell always struck me as a out of central casting type of person that it's almost like, he doesn't have to have any special thoughts. He has the sort of the stature of what people think of as a politician. And, it's like being tall and playing basketball. It's just sort of easier for you than most people. But I guess some people's heads, and they have no inclination to stop themselves. Yeah. So I can believe, I guess what I'm saying is I could believe it or I could disbelieve it. Either story writes itself. I don't know. How do you feel?
Well, this might be the one and only time these next words come out of my mouth. No, God willing. But Lauren Boebert is going to express my thoughts succinctly here.
Yeah, go to church. Find Jesus. Why is everybody so horny here?
So that hopefully is a rare occurrance where Lauren Boebert, I'm going to allow Lauren Boebert to speak on my behalf. But yes, why is everybody so horny around here?
You know what they say about power and aphrodisiacs. So.
Now, unfortunately, a story that once had very similar beats to it has had a recent turn that ended in tragedy. So this is not, I'm not entering this flippantly or in a humorous tone, but former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax kills wife and self in Annandale home, police say. Former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax killed his wife and himself in their home in Annandale, Annandale, Virginia. Once considered a rising star in Democratic politics, he committed the tragic act of violence amid a complicated or messy divorce, Fairfax County Chief of Police Kevin Davis said. Several years ago, the attorney's political career crumbled after women said he sexually assaulted them. Dr. Serena Fairfax, an accomplished dentist and devoted mother, was found dead in the home with her husband of the 8100 block of Guinevere Drive shortly after midnight Thursday. She was 49 and her husband was 47. The couple's son and daughter, who were in high school age, were at home at the time, Davis said. Justin is believed to have shot Serena several times in their basement before running upstairs to the primary bedroom and turning the same gun on himself, Davis said. Both were pronounced dead on the scene. The couple's teen son called 911 and said his mom was bleeding and he didn't know where his dad was. Serena had cameras installed inside the home at some point, police said. Detectives used them to corroborate the sequence of events. Quote, certainly a traumatic event for those children to live through, Davis said. The children are now with family members. Davis said the couple was separated but still living together in the home in separate bedrooms. Court documents obtained by News 4 say Serena filed for divorce in 2025. Last month, a county judge granted custody of their teen children to Serena and ordered Justin to move out of their home by the end of April. That may have been a spark, Davis said. Detectives will figure that out, what led to this tragedy here. An investigation is underway, and authorities plan to get the search warrant for the home. Police said there was no threat to the community. Serena ran a family dental practice in Fairfax and was an accomplished dentist and member of several professional associations. She graduated from Duke University and Virginia Commonwealth University and was recognized as a VCU Outstanding Graduate, a bio on her dental practice website says. She shared that she loved to travel, read, care for pet dogs, and spend time with her wonderful family. Prince William County Supervisor Andrea Bailey described her horror upon learning the couple whom she and her husband once joined for dinner and family celebrations was dead. I am devastated. I just screamed when I heard the news, she said. My heart goes out to the family, the children, Serena's parents, all of their relatives, and I pray God's comfort to them at a time like this, her husband, Virginia NAACP President Cozy Bailey said. Serena was brilliant, Andrea Bailey said. She was a superstar in her own right. He said, there's a loose group of black female dentists here in the Northern Virginia area, and she was part of that group. Everyone knew the name Serena Fairfax. Fairfax County Police responded to the home once before earlier this year. Justin called police in January and accused his wife of assaulting him, Davis said, but the cameras she'd installed in the home served as key evidence. Quote, we reviewed those cameras and corroborated that the alleged assault never occurred, Davis said. No arrests were made and no charges were filed against either Serena or Justin. Justin Fairfax was once considered a rising star in the Democratic Party. He had served as Virginia's lieutenant governor from 2018 to 2022. His election made history. He was just the second African-American elected statewide in Virginia. He appeared poised to take over for the governor's office from Ralph Northam in 2019 after a scandal over racist photos in Northam's medical school yearbooks appeared. Then, 2 women accused Fairfax of sexual assault. He denied the allegations, tried to clear his name, and was never charged with a crime. He practiced law after leaving public office, Davis said. Quote, certainly a fall from grace for a relatively high-profile family that seemingly had a lot of things going on in their favor, Davis said. So tragic for the children to lose both parents. Extra tragic for them to be in the home when it occurred. Justin changed after the allegations ended his quest for higher office, the Baileys told News 4. Quote, he was on the verge of a great achievement when his world changed dramatically, Cozy Bailey said. He went to a dark place. He went to a dark place after unfounded, unproven allegations of things that can just totally ruin a person. The police department's victim services division is supporting the family and the children in particular, Davis said. Court documents say Justin Fairfax spiraled into alcoholism and isolated himself from family involvement following the 2019 sexual assault allegations against him while he was in office. He denied the allegations, but they weighed on him tremendously, the judge wrote. Quote, the wife testified that heavy daily alcohol consumption by the father has become the norm, a judge wrote in the custody opinion. During the custody battle, the judge said, the evidence also showed that in 2022, father purchased a handgun with money intended for his children's horseback riding lessons. The couple was scheduled to return to court Monday for the next phase of the proceedings, court records say. Justin was being punished by the court for not complying with existing court orders. A judge had recently ordered him to be fined $300 for each day he continued to disregard orders and compensate his wife for money he owed her. The court found that Justin was unable to have a healthy relationship with his kids because of his alcohol use and self-isolation within the home. The family's struggles were becoming apparent to neighbors, Peter DeMeo said. He said they seemed to have marital issues, but he never would have imagined this outcome. Heartbroken beyond words, friends and leaders honor the Fairfax family. Friends and local leaders, both current and former, expressed the horror and heartbreak. Former D.C. council member and current mayoral candidate Kenyon McDuffie said he and Justin were childhood friends. He said he's praying for the couple's children, families, and others who are grieving. Quote, "I'm heartbroken beyond words," McDuffie said in a statement. "The Fairfax family and my family have been close for as long as I can remember. Our parents knew one another. We grew up in each other's lives." Governor Abigail Spanier said in a statement, I'm deeply saddened by the tragedy that occurred last night. I'm praying for the Fairfax children, and I ask my fellow Virginians to hold them in their hearts and prayers. The murder of Dr. Serena Fairfax in an apparent murder-suicide is a horrific tragedy. Dr. Fairfax was a devoted mother, beloved dentist in the Fairfax County community, and engaged supporter of her alma mater, Virginia Commonwealth University, Spangberger said. My prayers are with the Wanzer and Fairfax families as they mourn their own loss, endeavor to make sense of this tragedy, and comfort the Fairfax children. This tragedy reminds us that domestic violence can occur in any family, in any place, she said. Resources are available to support our neighbors experiencing domestic violence and facing mental health crises. Ralph Northam, the Virginia governor during Justin's term, said, Pam and I are devastated by this heartbreaking news. I had the privilege of getting to know the Fairfaxes while our families served together. Northam added that he's praying for the couple's children during this incredibly difficult time. So that's a very tragic outcome to that story. A story that in its contemporary form at the time had many absurdities that made it rather entertaining. I don't know if you recall this sort of situation, Alex, where Ralph Northam, his yearbook had come out and there was a photo that labeled him being in it, one person wearing blackface, the other wearing a Klan outfit. And Ralph Northam could not remember which one he was in the photo, which is not a really good situation to be in. That was...
Yeah, well, it's dark. The whole thing is dark, right? I mean, imagine... I was going to say it's a sudden, worsening of situation for the children, though it also seems to have come after a gradual, it's almost like slowly then all at once kind of situation.
Yes, I don't believe it's said in the article, but elsewhere I had read that he had lost custody of all the children. Like he was being not only kicked out of the house, but that he had no visitation rights with the children because of his alcohol use.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I will say from just the experience with an acquaintance with family issues, I do see sometimes at courts the way they act here. I don't know how they act in other countries. I haven't been an adult with a family in other countries. They can, intervene in very sort of ham-fisted ways that can definitely make situations a lot worse than they have to be. Though in this case, presumably the conclusion is going to be, we should have had him removed on the spot and not let him go back to the house, or something like, we should have acted even more swiftly. Let's say. I don't know. It's dark.
Very, very dark, and that is a situation where in either situation, whether he was guilty of those assault claims or not. The way in which he handled being accused was, more important almost than that situation. Like it's very important whether he was guilty or innocent, but the way that he handled the pressure from that accusation changed everything. Right?
I'll tell you what. Retroactively, he did not offer a good character witness for himself. It's hard to say whether he seems to be a scoundrel or whatever. But from and yes, it could be causal that way. You get accused of something and then you spiral. But it could also be the other way where you're just the person who's entitled and is getting used to getting everything, and you hit a wall somewhere, and you see yourself ending up like the guy who had a moment in the sun, but never really gets to that level again. So yeah, again, like many of the other stories today, it's very, very hard to know what to think, and it's all dependent on variables we don't have access to.
Absolutely. Now, if we can move on.
Though,
From the...
if you do kill your wife and yourself, you will be blamed.
Well, I think we can all agree that whatever sins of his past, that was probably the worst one.
The worst one, yes.
That's the worst one. Well, moving on from sexual assault world here, which just as again. Hopefully the one and only time I say that Lauren Boebert is going to speak for me. Why is everyone so goddamn horny? We have a Tyler Robinson update. The letter that was supposedly left to his lover underneath of the keyboard that was mentioned in a text message that was leaked early has been released.
Newly unsealed court documents revealed a full handwritten confession from accused Charlie Kirk killer Tyler Robinson to his trans lover. The sick note, in which Robinson refers to his roommate and lover Lance Twiggs as Luna, was made public in full on April 9th, as Robinson remains held for allegedly shooting the popular conservative media personality from a rooftop at Utah Valley University in September 2025. Luna, if you are reading this per my text, then I am so sorry, the note begins, presumably referring to a text Robinson had reportedly sent Twiggs moments after the assassination, telling his partner to, quote, "Drop what you are doing, look under my keyboard." A search warrant affidavit obtained by Fox 13 confirmed the handwritten note was found under Twiggs's keyboard at a St. George, Utah townhouse shared by the couple. "I left the house this morning on a mission and set an auto text. I am likely dead or facing a lengthy prison sentence. I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I took it. I don't know if I will/have succeeded, but I had hoped to make it home to you. I wish we could have lived in a world where this did not feel necessary. I wish I could have stayed for you and lived our lives together. I lack the words to express how much I love you and how very much you mean to me. Please try and find joy in this life. I love you always, Tyler." Texts between Robinson and Twiggs have shown that the capital murder suspect had been planning the grisly killing for, quote, "a bit over a week," and offered insight into his train of thought in the moments after the shooting, as law enforcement launched a sweeping manhunt for the perpetrator. Robinson and Twiggs, who authorities said was transitioning from male to female, also made a plan to rendezvous at their home. Twiggs, who responded that they were at their parents' house, devised a plan to flee the family home without raising suspicion and go see the confessed killer. It's unclear if any reunion between the couple took place before Robinson's father turned him into authorities the day after the incident. Robinson, who could face the death penalty if convicted of aggravated murder, is being held behind bars until his trial concludes. He is due back in court on April 17th, when his lawyers are expected to argue why the press shouldn't be allowed to record or take photos at his hearings and trial.
So, Alex, that's the letter update. I know that in the past you've had some questions, unanswered questions at least, from the gun that was used, and that Chris Martenson had done a presentation you found fairly persuasive in raising questions, not necessarily answering them concretely, but giving you reason to feel something was off. How do you stand on that aspect as of today? And if this letter is authentic and genuine, does that affect your understanding of the situation at all? Does it?
Well, the text it was a little bit confusing, but the text that was read, I think, was the auto text that went to Lance Luna, right? Mm-hmm. And it referred to a note. I believe the note is burned, and then that note, which also said I had the opportunity or whatever. So he sent an auto text to redirect to a pre-written note. Why not just put everything in the anyway? So he sent the auto text. I don't know what auto text. I'm assuming from the context that it is an automatic text to be sent at a particular time. A scheduled text message. So with that understanding, he sent a text with some information and then redirected the person to look under the keyboard. The announcer said it was under Twig's desk, which is the lover. Mm-hmm. But the auto text says look under my keyboard, which is Robinson. Whatever. Let's just assume this is some confusion in the thing. And then that has been burned. So Twigs, at least for some time, was appearing to cooperate with Robinson and destroying evidence. And then the first I heard here is that they may have met before Robinson turned himself in, which is interesting. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is this is a very confusing trail of evidence. I believe the text itself has been recovered, in the words of Kash Patel, thanks to our aggressive interrogative stance or something like that, which tells me that they pushed Twigs to say what was on the note. That's my best guess. And so they have a picture of the situation. The thing I've seen from the same release, I believe there's been a dump of documents. The thing I've seen from the same release is that some of the Discord messages where he appeared to be confessing to his friends had been sent after the projected time that he had been booked, which is extremely confusing for people. But all I'm saying is, there's basically a timeline to put together here. And there could be a set of circumstances where it all adds up. I think part of it is that the police has a principle, a modus operandi that does not sort of encourage them to be transparent about what they know, what they understand, or how they see the case. So we are putting it together from fragments. I will say, for example, that a lot of people are mocking the tone of these messages, "'Tis I, my lover," whatever. I don't actually see that particular thing as like a red flag, right? I can imagine people who speak in different ways, in different subcultures, whatever.
Being a little silly in your communication styles with your lover may not be as odd, right? It's not a sign that someone was faking the messages. Is that what you're saying? That
yeah, like of all the things that give me pause, like that is very low on the list, which I know others find.
Where do you stand on the that he used the word vehicle argument?
Sure, whatever. I note it down and I put it like somewhere, but it's like whatever, man. Like this is like low in the noise for me. Like okay, he used the word vehicle. I don't know. But all I'm saying is there is a timeline here. I continue to be skeptical and confused. My mind could change. The bullet stuff, honestly, everything I've seen since has strengthened it. Mostly because as far as I know, the latest is that the bullet shattered not the casing, the part that was in Kirk, which makes zero sense for the kind of bullet it's supposed to have been and for the kind of gun that's supposed to have been used. So like because people will say like, oh, but it's a frangible, point, whatever, 3006. And those kinds of bullets are legitimately incredibly hard to source. We're not talking about, like, if that was indeed what happened, that makes it even more suspicious, because at that point, how the hell did he get that bullet? This is not the stuff you find at a hunting shop or something. Like, these are extremely high-end, like very, very obscure pieces of ammunition. and even people who have tried those still can't replicate what we saw. So there's like a whole like story down that path. Look, my best guess right now is that Robinson was somehow involved, but more likely than not, there were other people involved, and there was a deeper story that we're not seeing.
Okay, so you're going to have more of an opinion on all that than I am, because I have not gone down the gun oddities trail to form one. How I do share the general belief that Tyler Robinson was likely involved. I would entertain an idea that he was, encouraged by some third party and used as a patsy in some way in order to weaponize some of his, let's call it, mental instability, to encourage him to take this action.
Strongly held beliefs.
Right. So that would be where I would rest, just off of the information that I have right there. And if this letter, the contents of the letter are accurate, it certainly does suggest more directly that he is the person who took the shot that we all believe that was indicated. Well, not we all believe, but the initial belief was indicated by the video footage that we would have seen that day. So. Yeah,
I will say for clarity, because I don't think everybody is fully aware of this. He has not confessed to police and is not admitting guilt currently. So whatever it is that happened, his at this moment, for whatever it's worth, right? You might say it's not worth anything, fine, but for whatever it's worth, his current position is that he's not guilty.
Well. We'll see. We'll see what.
I'm just saying that because people, because of course, I'm not saying that he's not guilty or that he won't be judged guilty. I'm saying because of this whole confession stuff going around. I think a lot of people, from the comments I've seen, are under the impression that he has confessed to police. They have an official confession on file.
I was not aware of that. I was not aware of that allegation. I was not aware of that rumor or whatnot.
Yeah. No, it's like, for example, Schellenberger wrote like a confessed killer. Joe Kent would let a confessed killer go by testifying in his favor or whatever. And it's like, well, I mean, if you're just gonna put that there with no quotes, no, nothing, for a person undergoing trial currently, like the only, how are you characterizing this person as a confessed killer where all you have is the prosecution's account of it? Anyway. Yeah, so definitely the belief is out there.
In order to add just a little bit of clarity to the situation, I think we can all say for certain we know who didn't kill Charlie Kirk. Gator.
Me.
Okay, so we've eliminated two people. Awesome. Excellent. We are on our way.
We're narrowing it down, man.
Right. By process of elimination, we are narrowing down this case. We're on our way, sir. This is good. I've invited Donald J. Trump, who requested to speak, up. I'm sure that he has some interesting perspective to provide us on this situation. Donald J. Trump, PhD.
Before we continue.
Oh, hanging in there, guys. Hanging in there. Before I get to the bullet, I was just going to say it's obvious the handwritten note were the hidden bank account numbers that the Israelis gave him for shooting Charlie Kirk. And as far as the bullet, I would say with the 30-06, so your most typical round for a 30-06 is going to be a hunting round, which is usually a soft point, which is made to basically fragment once it hits the body. It's not really made for high penetration, like say a steel jacket military round would be. So yeah, most likely if he bought anything off the shelf, it's just an old hunting round. And if it's his grandfather's gun, he might have been using reloads, which would also be a hunting soft point. So it's not surprising if it did what it did inside his body, especially when it hit a bone. And as far as frangibles,
it's so simple. I would like to see somebody, one person, out of chance, just filming one time when they can do something along those lines.
I mean, I've treated a 7.62 by 39 that hit a guy from 50 yards out and failed to penetrate his skull. It turned left, went around the skull, and exited the rear. Yeah, I've seen a buddy of mine treated a girl got hit by a 50 square off in the head from under 50 yards, and it bounced up and grooved the top of her skull and just went right through the back.
I understand. All I'm saying is I would like to see, somebody try it like 100 times. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not going to say like, if it's not the most likely, it doesn't happen. I just would like to see one time it being attempted and, something other than, very obvious catastrophic damage happening.
I would honestly, your best bet, I mean, at least from your best unintentional bet might be to go on hunting forums and look at pictures of people who have shot deers. Like, because you get plenty of shots there that are non-penetrators. Guys take pictures all the time.
Yeah, it's just that the people who do try replications usually tell you, like, look, this is how far I am. This is the thing, they film it before, they film it after. They give you the whole, it's not like, oh, here's a photo of something that happened and trust me, I was close or, something. Anyway, that's not to, like, it does count for something that you're saying this. So I'm definitely like, keeping it in mind. It's just, I have a lot of people saying a lot of things. To me, it's like, okay, let's say it's a low probability event. Like, can we see it one time? That would help me a lot.
Right. Well, like I said, it's just bullets, man. Like I had a colleague who was shot 24 times, 7 times in the armor. The rest were pelvic shots. He still killed 4 people and walked out of the house. The guy in the next room took one in the throat and died. Let's see. We had a guy once that he took a piece of shrapnel in his ass and we packed him up. We thought he was good. 15 minutes later, when we got the FST, he was under surgery because it had nicked an artery and he was dying. Like, you never know what you're going to get when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like, that's what I keep trying to impress the people.
I fully get it, which is why it would be easy to show. What confuses me is that every attempt at replication I've seen does something that is in a very narrow range. I don't see. Look, I'm not an expert in guns or people getting shot or anything of that. I am your random, person off the street. What I'm saying is, what I'm observing with this very limited data set is that all the replications I've seen do something very similar. Now, you might say, well, these people are motivated to create something like that. Fair enough. But I know there's people who are motivated to show something else. So, it would really help me if they did do a few, decently well-documented attempts and showed me that if not that, like, that specific thing happens, that there's a very wide range of potential outcomes. That would help me build up doubt.
Donald J. Trump, I did mute you because your line was a little bit windy. So if you are speaking, go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a finalizing thought on that subject.
Oh, no. Yeah, I was just going to say, like, yeah, you can kind of do lab testing like that. I mean, quote lab. I mean, you're talking to people who, for all their knowledge of gun stuff, and I don't know the channels you're talking about. Their knowledge of anatomy and how it interacts with bullets is probably not the greatest. But like
look, yeah, I mean, Chris Martinson is a pathologist. I don't know, sorry, it was a toxicologist. He knows his biology. Like for what it's worth. Right. Again, I'm not. That doesn't mean that he's 100%. I want to be super clear. I'm not saying he's 100% correct, and I won't like take any other opinion. I'm saying there is, yeah.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, when I talk, and I'm not saying you specifically, I'm saying this in general in the public, when I talk about this stuff, like I 100% believe that bullet could have done that, just based off my combat experience, my friend's combat experience, like everybody's combat experience. Just bullets are some of the weirdest damn things you've ever seen on a planet. And they just won't do things that they're supposed to do sometimes.
Yeah, no, I understand it. It totally could be, but in that case, let me put it differently. Okay, let's talk about what we do know. We know there's an amount of energy in that bullet, right? And I can floor that with the fact that there's definitely a supersonic crack that you hear when the shot, like I've listened to a ton of mics. I haven't done a lot on the bullet itself, but I've done a fair amount, not too much, but more than most people on the audio. And I can, knowing that, right, gives you a baseline of like, what is the minimum amount of energy that was on that bullet? And you know that has to go somewhere, right? No exit wound means that it has to stay in the body. And the amount of movement that his body had on the video we see is limited. So that just, okay, I'm not telling you like it had to do this or that. I'm saying, action, reaction, like what am I looking at here?
So I watched the rear angle when I haven't done the audio stuff you have, but when I watched the different angles, the rear angle where it shows his whole spine move backwards and ablate the power, and you can see the rib cage flex forward and back, and then when you go to the front, you see the sternum pull up, in, and up. There was a massive transfer of energy internally in his body when he got hit. I mean, it's like, just from my medical perspective, it was a massive amount of like energy transfer when he got hit, and it all got ablated into the rib cage. So he basically got hit in a major superstructure part of his body and at a plunging angle. So it plunged down, in, hit, and you can actually see the spine independently shift back as his head kind of moves forward. So it was a huge energy transfer there, and that whole area of the body is made to ablate energy as it's coming in. So, and now granted, it's blunt energy. It's usually not kind of real like high velocity energy like that. But yeah, your whole rib cage and everything is made to like fold and twist and turn when you get smashed with stuff. So the question would be, I guess, to talk to like a surgeon or someone and find out like how many joules of energy that whole rib cage and that whole spinal area and all the cartilage and everything there can actually absorb.
Look, if you hear what was leaked from the autopsy, which like I'm willing to believe is fake, which opens a whole bunch of other questions, which is why people close to Charlie would lie about what's in the autopsy. They say he was hit at C2. Okay, the hole we see is in the neck, which is to hit C2, it would have to go through his jaw, and so anyway. That said, and I know I'm sort of in the skeptic corner, but I would be genuinely very interested if you saw Chris Martinson's original analysis on this, where he goes through basically the whole thing about that is that it came from a 10-degree angle, and so you can sort of estimate very precisely where he was and where the shooter was, or at least it's claimed to have been. So you can see the angles, and it's not that downward facing. Because of the distance to that building, and you can sort of get a little bit more information about how that is supposed to have played out, at least from what we see, and make it add up. But I would be very, very genuinely interested in again without a sort of intent to say like whatever you say, I'm going to dismiss it. Like I'm truly genuinely interested in hearing how you would reprocess, I guess, what Chris put out.
Oh, I watch the Martinson stuff. Actually, I watch him all the time. He's excellent. So here's the thing. When I'm saying all this, I'm not saying there's not something else going on. I'm saying the 30-06 is probably a red herring argument. Like his audio stuff is more compelling than the fact
I think he didn't do anything. He kind of gave up on the audio because it was very compounded. I think if I sat down with it, I probably could do something. I've done sound engineering in my life, just for background. But I think if I sat down with it, I probably could do a little bit more than most people seem to be doing. Just I haven't been motivated sufficiently. I suppose there's only so many rabbit holes you can jump into. Look, to me, let me put it differently, and this goes back to the thing about how people were talking about what I was saying before about how the law enforcement authorities have a particular set of ways in which they release information, which is independently confusing, barring everything else. Which is to say, we're shown a video that would have shown him shooting, but we're not shown that part, right? We're told there's engravings on the cartridges, but we're not showing the cartridges, which would have ended the conversation about what kind of, or at least would have severely constrained right? What kind of bullet this was. There's a lot of very specific pieces of information they could have put out that they're not doing, which has an effect of like, okay, well, we don't know what kind of bullet. There's very little known about the gun. The photo that is out there is of a composite weapon that is, highly unlikely to be his grandpa. So maybe it's stock footage or whatever. Okay, so throw that out. We don't get information from the autopsy. So we really don't know anything about the source or the target. We have like very little, which of course leaves a lot of room for speculation. Which is, presumably from the point of view of the authorities, the worst case scenario, but here we are.
Well, just to close off this particular discussion here, and while we move on, because we have other people who requested to speak, and we have a lot more topics to get to. Alex, what if you had to bet? Will the defense make a long bullet-based defense argument during the trial? What does your gut say about that? We can all have our independent, defenses or prosecutions against him in our heads, but do you think that the defense is going to use the bullet argument as part of a main component of their defense?
I don't know, because then they will have to. My knowledge of law is probably like on par with my knowledge of weapons, so I don't know if that will be a good road to go down. The fact that they released the precise timings of those messages, I think people are interpreting to mean that they are going to focus on the timeline. That something about the timeline doesn't make sense. Though, again, if he was a patsy, right? Like, let's say that the message that says I had an opportunity to take him down and I took it, that message was written by him because somebody involved him in a situation where he was a patsy or something, right? And he didn't do it, but he was there and he was somehow informed, right? Now, how do you defend that? It's sensitive, because if he said, I wanted to kill him, I was ready to do it, but then I showed up with a gun, and before I could do anything, somebody took him out. And there I was running away with like whatever the situation is, right? Like, how do you defend that, right? You have to be extremely vague, because if you say like, I was gonna kill him, I was willing to kill him, I wanted to kill him, I went there to kill him, but I didn't kill him, like that's it's gonna be a hard sell. So I don't without knowing what really happened, and it's really hard to know what angle they're gonna take, and also with the evidence they have. All I can tell you is from what they have put out there, if the analysis of various people online who are commenting about it, take it or leave it, is of any use, seems to indicate that they're going to focus on the timeline.
Okay. Well, the next speaker that brought up here is Greg Ellis. Now, Greg Ellis has been up here at least, I think, once before with us. Now, for those who don't know, Greg Ellis is a Hollywood actor. You might have seen him in movies like Pirates of the Caribbean or television shows like 24. But Greg, if I'm not mistaken, you wrote a book called The Respondent, which discusses the difficulties of going through the family court system, and you had experiences with the family court system, which I'm going to assume can help us sort of relate to the Justin Fairfax lieutenant governor scenario as he was going through his divorce proceedings. Would that be an accurate assumption on my part, sir?
It would, sir. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. Hello, Alexandros, and hello, hey. President Dr. RollerGator.
Welcome. Do you have any initial reactions listening to that Fairfax story that would kick us off, sir, on some understanding some of the way that family court works? And
well, some people call family court the court of equity. I talk about family court, or have talked in my book about family law being the only branch of the legal system where there's no presumption of innocence. Murderers, rapists, terrorists, pedophiles have more rights than law-abiding citizens who happen to be or have signed a marriage contract. And I believe the breakdown of the family unit consisting of both the biological father and the biological mother is the single greatest threat to Western civilization today. If you look at the data, today, more than a third of children in America live absent their biological father. These children are at greater risk of facing difficulty in their lives with respect to virtually every conceivable metric. They're more likely to use drugs, experience abuse, go to prison, twice as likely to drop out of high school, and much more likely to live in poverty. They're 7 times more likely to become pregnant as teens. And, as it pertains to men, I have to be somewhat careful here. But, I see this as and I talked about this during the scamdemic or panicdemic, as I called it at the time. We have suicides have been skyrocketing for a while. We have a mental health panicdemic, if you will. There's 800,000 people die by suicide each year. That's 132 suicides every day. That's one person every 40 seconds. And American men, if we're just looking at America, American men kill themselves 4 times more than women. Divorced men kill themselves 8 times more than women. And a troubling fact is that for every child who loses their mother to suicide during or after divorce, 8 children lose a father. And I'll just say this is one of the pieces of research data that I came across in writing the book, which is so disturbing. Every day family courts are open in America. 4,000 children lose a parent. 4,000.
You said at the beginning there, Greg, that there is no presumption of innocence. Could you highlight a little bit of how that operates from inside the system? Like what happens in the family court that sort of removes the idea that there is innocence before guilt is found?
Yeah, family courts are basically it's like going back to the days of the Spanish Inquisition or the Salem witch trials. We brought in a presumption of innocence to provide people, human beings, with, literally that, a presumption of innocence. You are innocent until proven guilty. And in family courts, what we find is most of the time, I wouldn't even say a lot of the time, most of the time, it is guilty until proven innocent, and many times guilty until proven more guilty. And the silver bullet that I call it, a family court, is the DVRO or the OOP or the inciting incident that causes a man or woman, mother or father or mother, to be accused. And if you are accused, you typically are provided, if you are a murderer, a rapist, a terrorist, a pedophile, a presumption of innocence, so that you have the opportunity, particularly criminal court, which is different to civil court and is very different to family court. You are proved guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a different bar that you have to meet in civil court, obviously, but in family court, there really is no bar. It literally is as simple as if you're the petitioner, you file, and you don't really even have to present any evidence. You then are forced, as the black-hatted respondent, to prove a negative. It's like,
so, to break that down, a DVRO, OOP that you mentioned, those are protective orders, like restraining orders that are.
Yeah, DVRO is a domestic violence restraining order, and OOP is an order of protection.
So, in a standard scenario, one might imagine a woman who is undergoing some domestic violence and goes to seek one of these orders. In the family court situation, the courts tend to err on the side of caution, let's call it, whereas we can certainly easily frame it in a way that I do think is fair, but from some perspectives, it is not specifically about the presumption of innocence so much as taking an air of caution to try to grant, let's say, the person who is claiming to have suffered this domestic violence protection that might be necessary for them to avoid further victimization. Is there anything in that process that tries to compensate for this trade-off, where the court wants to not make the mistake of turning their back on a person in need, but by granting some protections, but then also on the other hand gives the person that they are ordering the protection against a fair hearing, or is it completely lopsided in your experience against the person who is being accused?
Well, in my experience, it is completely lopsided. But what I found through going through my experience and researching and talking to many people, and then finding out that this was not just a me issue or a man issue. It happens to many mothers too. The data shows that it's predominantly more fathers and men than it is mothers, but it happens to mothers and women too, is that it's a societal issue and it's a Western civilizational issue, in that that presumption of innocence, you have a hard time overcoming. I mean, the attorneys in family law, there is a planting of money trees that goes on. Let's put it that way, whereby the marriage contract, which, I know it sounds kind of cold, but it is a marriage contract. It should be dealt with in contractual or civil court. But many years ago, we created this, what I call a kangaroo boondoggle court, or family court, which is to deal with family issues. Well, where does the state get to choose? They get to choose what's right for me and my spouse and our children? No. They don't get to determine who is the more adequate parent or who should have access to their children. So we created this system a long time ago, which really now I think it's up to about $125 billion a year industry. And, the family court system is a gauntlet that tends to treat predominantly fathers, but mothers and parents more as caricatures than real human beings. And it's extremely difficult and many times impossible for someone who has been accused of, and I should say falsely accused, or accused without a presumption of innocence and the ability to use the court system and the legal system and jurisprudence as we knew it, and why we inserted jurisprudence into our culture, to be able to have that shield of, I am innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. Because if I'm found guilty by de facto, how can I find myself innocent? It's impossible. It is literally, it literally is the Salem witch trials. It literally is the Spanish Inquisition. So there isn't a simple answer to this, but I think your question was more about how does one overcome that? Well, it is almost impossible. Look, there's nothing more sacred, I don't think, than the parent-child relationship. And by elevating the parent-child bond to a near sacred status, which I believe we should, because it is the kind of evolving, revolving door of our cultural history, how we raise our children, how the tapestry, I guess, of our culture. What I've seen is, frankly, I write about it in the book, the mass kidnapping of American children from sometimes flawed, good parents. And look, here's the thing. If I have issue with false accusations in that, well, how do you stop them? What do you do about them? Because you have to listen to people. You don't believe a whole subset of a group of people just because there's an accusation. But you have to take it somewhat seriously, but there has to be a system that roots that out. And if someone is found to have been found to have made a false allegation, what I would say is they should face the same penalty that the accused would have faced had they been found guilty. And we don't have that in our legal system, particularly in family court.
So if I were to rephrase what you just said there, because it's interesting. So you're saying that if we were going to have a system where the presumption is not of innocence initially, at least in the consequences phase, because having a protective order issued against you is in some ways a punishment. So if you are innocent, you are being immediately punished for something that you haven't done. And it not only has a set of restrictions attached to it, it has penalties for violating those restrictions, in addition to the fact that having one of those issued against you can be very deleterious to your reputation, whether you have a larger reputation to protect or just a community-wide reputation. Having one of those against you paints a stigma against you as a person where you haven't even had a proper airing to defend yourself. So if I'm understanding what you're saying, you believe if that is the position that they are going to take still going forward, if you do successfully defend yourself and demonstrate that you are innocent of the crimes, the person who sought the protective order against you should face some sort of punishment to attempt to equalize the situation and give rights back to the person accused.
Well, wouldn't you think that that's only fair? I mean, there was a case, it wasn't family court, but many years ago, there was a case called the Guildford 4 in England. And if you look at that case, horrific case. I mean, people sent to prison for 12, 15 years. And we were talking in a criminal court. So I've changed the subject slightly from a family court to a criminal court. But it was found that the Crown Prosecution Service, the detectives, the police involved, they had withheld evidence. In fact, in the case file, there was a note that said, do not show this to the defense. And it was a witness statement that would have cleared the Guildford 4. So in that situation, yeah, great. You exonerate the 5-6 people whose decades of their lives. One of the accused was 17 and was 32 when that case was finally revealed to have been a miscarriage of justice. But my opinion would be those detectives and those attorneys for the Crown Prosecution Service who knowingly withheld their evidence should go to prison for the same amount of time, or at the very least, the same amount of time as if they'd committed the crime, which is what the people who were found guilty and spent all these years in prison spent. So there is a lack of accountability and responsibility. Getting back to family court, that is, I call it the crusade of familial genocide, because it truly is. You literally can ruin someone's life in a heartbeat. The reputation savage strategy in my book, I call it the 6 silver bullets of family law war.
Your book, The Respondent, Exposing the Cartel of Family Law. That is the full title that I failed to mention earlier.
That's okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a strategy that's used. And what I didn't realize, after what happened to me, is how many hundreds of thousands of people are affected by this, from Australia to Europe to the UK, Scotland, Ireland, South America. If you don't have a presumption of innocence, you don't have justice.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Greg. I am going to have to move on because we have more to cover, but I'm going to...
you've got some more dumb subjects to cover? Okay, go ahead.
We have many dumb subjects to cover.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. The last person who requested to speak is Katiekin. Katiekin, what's on your mind?
I don't want to harm the flow, but I was going to riff off of what Greg was talking about earlier about suicide and mental health, which I think ultimately produces more Tyler Robinsons and Ruby Roses. But the executive order that was just signed, was it in the last 24 hours? I just saw it on my timeline before coming to this space about mental health. It's about introducing psychedelics to treat mental health ailments like anxiety and depression. I think it's just focused on the Veterans Affairs. There's 18 people as of last year that are veterans that kill themselves. And 20% of those people die trying to get treatment, literally in hospital parking lots. But I wanted to contrast that with what we just saw Jordan Peterson's daughter describe to us, which is her dad's problem is a lot of his problems that are, it looks like he's on his deathbed right now, are attributed to actually regular depression medication like benzos. What's the full name? I don't want to just call it the street name, benzos.
Benzodiazepines.
Yeah.
Benzodiazepines.
Right. She said that he didn't take any of that since 2020, but he had long-term usage. It seems like there's a lot. He had immune issues, right, from mold. What was the name of the ailment? It's the neurological condition that he actually has. It wasn't that what's produced from the benzos? Is it or is it not? Do you know?
Is it the akathisia you're talking about? Or?
Yeah. Is that a direct result of the psychiatric help that he got in those medications, those psych meds, or not? Or is that independent?
The stuff with the constant pain and stuff has to do with the tapering, as far as I remember. So to the degree that he hadn't taken it in a while, I think that wouldn't, the specific thing I'm talking about wouldn't have affected him. But look, the problem with people like that is that they also have, there's a lot of misdirection in how they present their stories. So, I don't know if I would take everything Caleb Peterson says 100% at face value. Again, sadly, you want to. But it's understandable that the daughter of a person who is known to be a famous psychologist doesn't want the story to be that her dad was done by
gone through family
abuse.
So when I started my charity, I received an email from a veteran, and it stayed with me. This is one of the so many stories that stay with me. He was serving his third term in Iraq, and he had been blown up in an IED. He'd lost his arms and his legs. He was at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, and he was served a DVRO, a domestic violence restraining order, while he was recovering from serving his country and lost his arms and his legs. He was homeless. And he wrote in this email, he wrote to me that what I was doing, and I say this not in any way, shape, or form to pedestalize myself. I'm just factually. He wrote to me that what I was doing had given him hope, and that I was his hero. And I called him because he in his email had given his phone number. And I'm not ashamed to say I wept when I spoke to him. The courage of this man. He'd fought for 8 years in the family court system, having served his country, having lost his arms and his legs. He had massive small t, big T, complex trauma, PTSD, you name it, the list goes on, and was suffering so much. And I think it's ibogaine is what Katie Kim was talking about with Joe Rogan and what President Trump had just signed into law a couple of days ago. And Joe's been talking about that for a while. It is huge and can not only help veterans, but so many of the people suffering with mental health. Last thing I'll say is everyone's suffering with something, and many people are living lives of quiet desperation. So anything that can help mental health and mental wealth and mental health is great. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. So
Mr. Ellis, the respondent, your book, The Respondent, is a personal account of your trip through family court. Is that correct? So if people wanted to have a personalized experience through that would be a great place to go. I've shared your website, therespondent.com, to the space here if anyone wants to take a further peek. Katie, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Not really. Just wanted to bring in the conversation about mental health. Like, how would we essentially prevent more shooters? Just if we're talking about the LGBTQ trans issue, all the issues. I mean, if we're talking even about family law and wanting to have better family systems in place so you have less issues in court, we can say that we can fix the family dynamic with parenting in the nuclear family by at least having a parent home. But if your kids are being exposed to social media the way they are and the news the way they are, what comes first? Is it the improper use of social media? Is it going to be fixed with medication? Because that's clearly creating a lot of this chaos. In having even just such political division where people are so compelled to be on one side of an argument, and then they go out in the world and they fight for that to stay in their in-group. It's creating just more and more divisiveness, which is going to create more political turmoil and more shootings. So
thank you very much.
If I may, there's a great book by Dr. Warren Farrell. And there's a great article, actually, I remember about Dr. Farrell writes about the school shootings and fatherlessness being a kind of recurrent theme in that. So anyway, that's all I'll say. Thanks for your time. I'm going to leave this
While
stage.
we were on this call, just saying, there was 7 kids shot in Louisiana in another shooting, at a school, right? I didn't fully look at that, but
well, that's a lot of things to work with. But we're going to have to move on for now to other topics because I still have a lot that we need to get to. And of course, like every week, we will not get to it all. But Alex, I'm going to switch my stack here just a little bit so that we can get to some of the things that you were sending this week to try to get those taken care of here. So we're going to jump to some tech/legal news here. So it's the intersection of tech and law. And Alex, you sent me a link. We've been following this story. You introduced it to me a few weeks back, which is at least several states.
You care to read the message that I sent you with it?
Your specific message, sir, if you give me a moment to grab that, was very energetic. It was to quote specifically, sound bites. Oh my God! You and all in all caps in honor of yours truly, I believe. You have got to listen to these brain dead morons in the assembly. So we are talking about recent legislation in at least 2 or 3 different states that are sort of mirroring each other. New York, California, and where else, Alex? Is it Colorado or that you're aware of where these
we've got New York, California, Washington State, unfortunately for me, Washington State, Colorado, and
we're up to 4 now.
But I haven't.
Okay, so what we're discussing is 3D printer anti-gun ghost gun printing legislation. So we have discussed in the past these laws that have been proposed in these various states, which are attempting to block a 3D printer from being able to print items that are capable of assembling a gun, what they call ghost guns, things that are not purchased in a armory, a gun store, and registered. These are just things that you can do with your 3D printer, and they are at least semi-capable of being able to be used as a regular firearm. In fact, Luigi Mangione is the most famous alleged murderer, who to use one of these ghost guns in his alleged killing of the healthcare CEO. Now, the complexities and problems with these 3D printing laws that we've discussed is the fact, primarily, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is no really good way to identify whether or not what you are printing is actually gun related, because unlike the idea that these are three-dimensional model files where you can look at a shape and determine this is gun-like or that this is going to be used as a gun part, the printer itself, which is where these implementations would be, only receives moving instructions. So up, down, left, right, this far, up, that's the instruction set that it gets, determining that from a stream of those instructions that you are printing a gun. Fairly absurd as a prospect. Is that the summary of why?
I don't think it's. I don't know if throughout our conversations I've sort of led you to think that at this moment I don't. Even if, let's say it was a 3D file, okay, because you can't go backwards and reconstruct the broad shape of the thing that this will produce. But what does it being a gun mean, right? Could it be a part of a gun? I mean, sure, but it could be a part of all sorts of other things. But also, how do you determine this? And by the way, what is the procedure? Like, does it require you going to a cloud server just in case it is a gun? Even if you had the technology, which you could print things that don't look like guns but are guns, in which case, okay. But I think for the purposes of people understanding what we're talking about here is that forget the whole 3D printing thing entirely. Just consider that the analog of this is you don't like certain things being printed, not 3D printed, normal printed, inkjet printed on paper, right? So your solution is to inject software that prevents you from printing bad things. That's what we're talking about, okay? And that brings all of the various conversations into focus, which is, wait, does that mean that all my print jobs have to go to some cloud server that judges whether the thing I'm printing is bad thing? Yes, that is what we're talking about. And not only that, but printers that don't do that are illegal. And even if you could make an open source printer that could be modified to not do that, that would be illegal too. That's the sort of thing we're talking about here. And you could totally imagine things that you would not want to print, right? Like there is abusive, exploitative material out there that is absolutely horrific. But I don't think most people think that the correct approach to this problem is to, have the government look in to make sure that you're not printing a bad thing, which is what a lot of these laws are pointing to if they're going to be effective. Because there's another thing where, let's say they fingerprint a certain number of files that are known to be gun files, and if you're not printing those, you're safe. Okay, but that's pointless, right? So either it's pointless or it is incredibly dangerous. But all in all, I'm just noticing this new thing now. They call things ghosts, right? Ghost guns. What is ghost? I mean, is it a gun or is it not a gun? It is a gun. It's actually a normal, for all it could be a totally functioning normal gun. Well, whereby is this ghost property imparted?
It's ghost because the government can't see it.
We cannot track it.
Yes, the government cannot see it.
So you're seeing like a state at this point, right? You're looking at it from the eyes of a bureaucrat who wants to have full visibility of all things in certain class, right? And the fact that there's certain ones you cannot see makes you really uncomfortable, right? So you call them ghost whatever, which I had a tweet which I thought was funny because they do the exact same thing with what they call the Russian ghost fleet, right? If you hear the ghost fleet, we're going to take measures, we're going to sanction a Russian ghost fleet. You know what a ghost fleet is? It's a fleet that is not insured by Lloyd's of London. Like literally. The ships are normal ships. They're made of metal, They're not plasma. They don't go through dimensions. They're not, staffed by the dead.
Yet.
They're just not in the system because it's illegal for them to be in the system because Lloyd's of London will not insure them. So Russia said, fine, we'll make our own insurance companies.
The channel you sent me was called the 3D Printing Nerd, and he was going over a recent assembly by state legislatures that were discussing moving this out of committee and into a regular vote, this proposed legislation. And there was some statements from proponents and objectives that he's excerpted for us. And I've shared the direct full video to the space, and I'm going to play select clips and so we can discuss some of the stuff, because there is actually a theme that the proponents have embarked upon that I've commented several times on as a sort of, I believe, semi-novel take to this show here.
Initial hearing. Of course, we are talking about California's AB 2047, the Firearm Printing Prevention Act. It sets forth a really aggressive timeline. By July 1st, 2027, it requires the California Department of Justice to investigate firearm blueprint detection algorithms and publish performance standards for them. It gets better. By July 1st, 2028, any business selling 3D printers in California must attest that each printer model is equipped with a certified firearm blueprint detection algorithm. And that is the technology that they talk about that would prevent the printer from printing firearm parts.
Wait, what?
By September 1st, 2028, the DOJ must publish and maintain a public list of compliant printer models. And then on March 1st, 2029, only printers on the DOJ's approved list can be sold in the great state of California. This bill makes it a crime, a misdemeanor, and there are civil penalties up to $25,000 per violation for businesses that sell or transfer non-compliant 3D printers. The author of this bill is Assemblymember Rebecca Bayer-Kane.
AB 2047 builds on prior legislation to address the newest firearm threat, which is 3D printed weapons. Numerous reports from the Department of Justice and nonprofits have emerged demonstrating the proliferation of this type of firearm. This bill does so by requiring that all 3D printers sold in California are equipped with firearm blocking features, which will prohibit the printing of dangerous gun parts. So this means if you own a 3D printer, it will not allow you to print gun parts through technology that will screen the file you have to print and then ensure that those files are not printed.
She says the printer will screen the file, and sure, that sounds simple if you just don't know how 3D printing works. But G-code is just math. It's instructions like move left, move up, extrude. To screen that, the 3D printer would have to understand the intent of these moves. The bill is like asking a pen to stop you from writing a sentence the government doesn't want you to write. What about others that are supporting California's AB 2047? Surely science is guiding their views.
AB 2047 is an exciting technological solution to the dangerous problem of firearms made with household 3D printers. It's the common sense next step in California's fight against ghost guns. The 3D printed gun crisis is not far away. It's not a future problem. It's happening in California right now.
Right here. Right here is where they are manufacturing fear and lies and just trying to scare people. There's no crisis in California. And if a 3D printer is a firearms factory, then a sewing machine is a sweatshop. They're trying to assert that a 3D printer isn't just a general purpose tool, but an evil firearm making device.
To be clear, there's so much positive creativity and innovation happening as 3D printing becomes more accessible and affordable, and this bill won't stifle or threaten any of that.
Yes, it will. This would kill educational resources and stop it dead in its tracks because this technology is just not possible.
Technology now exists to block the printing of files that have been specifically identified as firearm design instructional files.
You can't fingerprint a 3D file like you could, say, a song. If you change one line of code or one coordinate in the file, it becomes a new thing, and that filter just fails. You're asking a 3D printer to analyze in real time geometry and intent, and it just can't do that. You're asking for magic. You're promising a magic filter, which just doesn't exist. Well, let's hear from the chairman on this. Perhaps he's got a voice of reason for all of us.
It's already against the law.
to use 3D printers to print firearms. There's got to be some meaningful way to actually enforce that law. And by the way, the law has been on the books for over 2 years and hasn't been overturned yet under Second Amendment grounds. In regards to the privacy concerns, I think if there's a substantial public interest, it does allow for limited, legally justified restrictions on privacy rights. I do think there is a substantial public interest, and this is clearly going to be challenged in the courts.
All right, now I got a couple more clips, shorter clips of just some additional commentary. But Alex, this is the point where I want to stop, because this is something I've mentioned several times as sort of a structural phenomenon, where there are people like you and I will look at something and go, taking this action is itself a crime. And there are people who will start with that conception with us, but they will not be satisfied with labeling a specific action a crime. They will want to go back through the causal chain of steps that would require one to take in order to get to that action. And they want to ban all of the previous potential actions that are necessary. So that gentleman right there just highlighted this pathology perfectly. It's already illegal to print one of these guns. So we have, like, murder with a gun, shooting people, killing people. Those things are already the crimes. The things that you and I would agree should be crimes and should be illegal. But that's not enough. Then they have to say making a gun on one of these machines is illegal, not because it in and of itself is a obviously criminal act, but because that gun could then be used to commit one of those other crimes that were already a crime. But now, because that's hard to enforce, they want to take another angle on this causal chain and make it illegal to make a machine that is able to make the gun that is able to be used. Like, it perfectly highlights the phenomenon that I was discussing, which is the perpetual causal chain illegality focus there.
Well, fascinatingly, I didn't know this. It says using a 3D printer to make a firearm requires a license in California. So since January 21, 2023. So this matches the guy's timeline. California requires anyone using a 3D printer to manufacture any number of firearms to hold both a federal firearm manufacturer's license from ATF. Good luck with that one. And a state firearm manufacturer's license, for good measure, from the California DOJ. This is stricter than the rule for traditional methods, where an unlicensed person can make up to 3 firearms per year for personal use. That 3 per year personal exemption does not apply if you use a 3D printer or CNC mill. So I did not know this. This is new for me. So we are already in the situation where it is legal to make a firearm, like up to 3 per year. Sounds reasonable. I don't know. But if they're, I understand that people may object to it, but whatever. 3 per year is fine, unless you use a 3D printer to make it, in which case you need 2 licenses, one from the ATF and one from California. Good luck. But that was not sufficient, because they're worried that enforcement might be lax on the law that shouldn't be a law already. So they're like, well, what if the printer did the enforcement for us? And furthermore, what if we made the printer not doing the enforcement for us illegal, which we will then enforce?
Well, now, Alex, one of the first, amazing things that when 3D printers first were consumer available, one of the things that they were proud of was the fact that it was sort of, circular, where you could print a 3D printer using your 3D printer, that you could use it to create itself, right? That you could have an assembly of 3D printers from your 3D printer.
The famous RepRap project.
So if this law passes,
which is a rapid replicator.
If this law passes, Alex, we understand that the next step is to ban 3D printers that are capable of printing 3D printers that don't have this capability automatic.
Oh, no, don't worry. We will add a coding agent to it so that it can print its own firearm banning technology. So
Yes. So the next set of smaller clips are from the opposing side.
Sorry, before you move on, right at the moment sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry for intervening there so unartfully, inartfully. So the previous clip you just cut, the guy basically was saying just at that moment that, well, if they don't like it, we can just pass it and they'll fight it out in court, which is the most insane thing you can say. It's like, yeah, we'll make it illegal, and well, maybe the courts will figure it out. Yeah, okay, well, there's First Amendment, Second Amendment. I understand it. It's a problem. Mm-hmm. That's what the courts are for. Deal with it.
This is California.
This
is California. This is California. So that is kind of par for the course.
If you didn't know this was California, you could just hear the vocal fry of the woman that introduced the legislation, and you will know this is California.
Okay, so I'm going to place the clips from the anti because it summarizes a decent amount of the things that we've said in the last couple times that we discussed it.
Members of the committee, my name is David Tobin. I'm a longtime California resident, and I'm the current executive director of the Community Manufacturing Initiative. CMI is a core partner in Experiential, a global innovation network alongside DECA, WPI, Cornell University, MIT, the National Science Foundation, First Robotics, and many, many more. In addition, I'm also the executive producer of the educational show 3D Printing Nerd, where I've spent the last 6 years traveling the planet working with every single company in this industry. Today, I'm here representing the $10.5 billion already invested in education and infrastructure in the state of California. We're here to address the 12 technical impossibilities and 12 First Amendment violations that make AB 2047 a fundamental failure. In my hands are the physical targets of this bill. This is the XRP robotics kit used by students across the globe. And over here, we have a 3D printed eyeball from the Mayo. The AB 2047 mandates blocking software that defies the laws of physics. 3D printers read G code, numerical coordinates, not shapes. It's a mathematical impossibility for these machines to detect intent. By mandating software gatekeeper that does not exist, you're decommissioning the tools by our schools and over 30,000 California businesses overnight. As a Californian, I'm deeply concerned that this bill creates a constitutional minefield for our state. Following the Ninth Circuit precedent of Bernstein versus Department of Justice, code is protected speech. This bill establishes prior restraints and content-based restrictions that will trigger immediate multi-front litigation. You're asking manufacturers to perform a technical miracle under the threat of absolute liability. This is not regulation. It's an accidental ban on California's innovation economy. Don't break the tools of the next generation of our California engineers because of a misunderstanding of the technology. We urge the committee to hold this bill. I provided a full analysis of these 24 specific failures in the packets that you have, and I'm available for your questions.
The vote was 9-3 in favor of passing it out of this.
So vote was 9-3 in order to move that legislation forward, as you would expect from people who just heard this technology that you are trying to legislate does not exist.
Upvote. That's what I want.
The thing that you are attempting to mandate is imaginary.
So when you were replaying actually those sound bites, I listened more carefully, and I think I detected where this is going. So when she said, "Oh, this is exciting new regulation," or whatever she was saying, she was talking about like in general banning, quote unquote, ghost guns. But when she was talking about the technology exists, it says to detect files that have already been flagged. Thank you, madam. We can compare strings. Like
we have been able to do checksums and hash codes. We've been able to do checksums and hash codes for
search engines are a thing that we have mastered.
But that is about it. But it still does require everything to be either internet enabled and always on in order to satisfy this, because the proposals and the technology they imagine requires a file matching apparatus, which means that it has to have a database of approved or unapproved files, as it may be, so that if you are trying to print an illegal file, it prevents you. That means it has to have a database from somewhere, and that database has to be maintained and updated, which means that it has to be connected to the internet, because for the moment that they unapprove a particular file, you have to be aware of it, or else you are your printer's in violation.
And furthermore, the printer will have to refuse to operate unless it is online, right? Otherwise, we just put it on offline, which means that you have an internet outage, and now you're I mean, 3D print.
For people like us, the first thing we do.
About?
Look, for people like us, the first thing we do is redirect the HTTP request and have a fake server that communicates that it's on. But that's you're
that's
online.
a felony, you see, Gator.
Well, it was. I mean, hey, look, you'll never catch me. I mean, they are ghost guns, so they'll never know.
Fucking stupid. Ghost print. That's what I said. Like after ghost fleets and ghost guns, we'll have ghost printers. Right. They can't track it. So it's a problem. And then it's like a cat in the hat, you can't catch the guns. So you start tracking the printers. You can't track the printers. So, who knows what's next.
Right. We'll try to get two more stories in here to close out this this show. But Donald J. Trump requested to speak about this ghost gun thing. So I would like to get his thoughts on the matter because he is our resident boom and firearm expert. Donald J. Trump, go ahead.
Okay, I just had a quick question because I haven't really been paying attention to this. Does this just cover 3D printers, or does it also cover the CNC machines that are used to make ghost guns? Because those are two different things.
Yes, sir. Let me. I have the precise answer to this. At least in one other legislation we read closely, 3D printers is basically just the banner that everybody understands. What the laws actually say is all subtractive and all additive manufacturing. Okay, are you freaked out sufficiently? A fucking lathe, if it's computerized, is controlled by this.
Grandpa used to whittle me wooden guns when I was a kid. He used to. I mean, that is a point that I just semi made by joke there, which is the fact that Nerf guns are technically guns, and you cannot make hobby pistols, BB guns, or anything with that type of logic.
Exactly. I mean, cosplay is a big use of 3D printers. God forbid, your character has a firearm of some description, you're screwed.
Yep. Now, I want to get the just semi-related sort of, at least they're conceptually in the same direction stories out here so we can close this out and have a regular sort of size show today, slightly over, but not too much over. So Alex, this is a piece of legislation that has flown under the radar as far as I can tell. I haven't seen it pop up in the feed. You didn't send it to me, so I don't know if you've come across this. But this is from Wired. Everything you need to know about the foreign-made router ban in the U.S. The Federal Communications Commission has banned new consumer internet routers manufactured outside of the U.S., citing national security concerns. The ban doesn't affect any routers already in American homes or currently on sale in the U.S., but all new routers aimed at the consumer market will need to be approved. While the headline is that foreign-made consumer routers are banned, manufacturers can apply for exemptions. There's no need to throw out your router, and you will still find plenty of mesh systems on the store shelves, but what does it mean for you? Malicious actors have exploited security gaps in foreign-made routers to attack American households, disrupt networks, enable espionage, and facilitate intellectual property theft, the FCC wrote. Foreign-made routers were also involved in the Volt, Flax, and Salt Typhoon cyber attacks targeting vital U.S. infrastructure. Foreign-made consumer routers were added to the covered list, which details equipment and services deemed to pose an unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States. Bogdan Botazu, director of the threat research at cybersecurity firm Bitdefender, says this ban is a step to harden the cybersecurity readiness of U.S. households given ongoing geopolitical tensions. Quote, consumer routers sit at the edge of every home network, which makes them an attractive target and a strategic risk if compromised at scale, he says. Asked whether he thinks the risk is real, Botatsu says yes, though there's no easy way to prove intent. Internet of Things devices, including routers, are a weak point across the internet. The ban only affects the sale of new Wi-Fi routers aimed at consumer households. The ban does not apply to existing FCC-approved routers on sale in the U.S. Previously purchased routers already in use in homes across the country are also fine and are not part of the ban, according to the FCC's FAQ. These routers can continue to be sold, used, and updated with new firmware. Any new router manufactured outside the U.S. now requires FCC approval before it can be imported, marketed, or sold in the U.S. This includes routers from the U.S. companies that are manufactured overseas, which is the vast majority of the market right now. Now, I have to imagine, Alex, that the specificity of it being a Wi-Fi router is due to the limitation of the FCC's domain of control, and not necessarily intrinsic to the logic being used or lack of logic being used for this proposal. However, it does leave an obvious gap that all other routing-based apparatuses, as long as they are not Wi-Fi, are still able to be brought in, which does not alleviate any conceptual threat of, espionage or anything, because Wi-Fi is only part of the thing that controls the packet transfer. So
I don't know where we're gonna dig, Gator. This is the thing, right? This is the intersection between law and technology, where you just had a loss for words. Now, this one actually, like, you can sort of see what they're going at. Though, again, any understanding of cybersecurity would tell you that, like, we are so exposed, all of us, that, like, the least of your problems is like, oh, is your router made in China because they could have spyware on it or whatever. Like, the surface these things put out on the internet is just insane. So, like, it's very, very hard to articulate how exposed we are, and this is basically a hole in water. So again, like, conceptually, you can sort of see what they're going for, and who knows? Maybe an American router manufacturer will benefit from this if they exist. I guess they're going to have to import some chips from China.
There's a continuing
in the USA.
There is a continuing of the section that describes the models that are not affected. But it's, there's so many concerns. I mean, look, if we really wanted to get super paranoid, we're all exposed 24/7. If the government got your Wi-Fi, got into your router, they could use the signal that it generates to do a scan of your home and determine exactly where you are location wise. Like, the fact that you're probably adjacent to another
home
gives them another Wi-Fi router to use to help triangulate the 3D geometry, so they don't just have like one projection of you, similar to the way the old Microsoft Connect would work. But like, we're all screwed when it comes to that. I can see you in 4 dimensions.
Like, your house.
I mean, if you start going down the ultra security route, you're going to be the most paranoid individual in the world. And, hey, sometimes it does warrant being the most paranoid person in the world, because you'll be the only one who didn't die when the aliens come and attack us next week when Trump announces all.
But then what's the point of that? You'll die shortly after. Congratulations.
But yeah, I mean, right now we just have the FCC doing this to Wi-Fi. I don't know if any other agencies that might have supposed authority are going to get in and go down the rest of the chain. But, Wi-Fi enabled devices are going to have similar properties as the Wi-Fi routers, just with lower power, because they only need to receive and send so far. I don't know, man. This is bizarre.
Well, I think both with this and the printer, we're seeing essentially a proof of concept, though, right? And I think it's important to understand this about governments. Once they find a pattern that works, right? If they say, well, you can't print firearms, whatever that means, well, then they can add, you can't print, quote unquote, counterfeit goods, or, if we judge that your vase is like a design that has been registered and therefore it is a, illicit copy, we can stop you from doing that, or, who knows what, right? Same thing here. If they can ban like this class of device, they can ban the next class of device and whatever. It just gets increasingly strange. But to the point of I guess this is a good crossover story. I'm guessing you've heard the whole hubbub around Mythos, the new model by Anthropic that has raised a lot of hackles.
Yes, Anthropic announced that they have created a new model that is at the intelligence level supposedly leaps and bounds the current Opus models, which are already pretty impressive. But this has scared people in the sense that, by Anthropic's own sort of fear promotion of its abilities, both positive and negative for its own benefit, is that it is capable of finding what they call 0-day exploits, which are exploits that are unknown. No one has yet discovered them, and Mythos has discovered several of these, and to be the first one to discover them, including a extremely old bug in one of the most used applications across the globe called FFmpeg, which is the backbone to majority of the streaming services that exist on the internet. That it found a bug that existed for a long time.
I think the one I remember is about open. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying that it's finding these exploits in a very fast fashion, which means that if it were released in the wild today, the idea would be that you would have an arms race. You would have the black hat hackers who are attempting to exploit the systems and use it for nefarious purposes, attempting to target things and find 0-day exploits, again, things that nobody else knows exists. And if they find 0-day exploits, the places they're trying to target or the things they're trying to target don't even know it exists to patch them yet. But the opposite side, the white hat hackers will be using this system to try to also find those exploits as fast as possible in order to patch them. And you'll have this wild west arms race of people trying to find exploits and patch exploits as fast as possible. And it'll just be a mess. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. Well, the important thing that I want people to pay attention to when they describe the software, they say, this capability until now was limited to, top end security, shops and intelligence agencies and whatnot, which means that it's, look, what do you take away from this? A, these exploits are everywhere, right? And speak to any technologist worth their salt and they'll tell you that. Every device you use has not been thoroughly vetted for absence of ways to compromise it. If anything, it has been known in the past to have had several. All you're depending on is that it gets updated quickly when people find something specific that the manufacturer gets told, and they sort of patch it up and give you something that doesn't have that specific problem. But next month, next batch of problems gets discovered. They're always there, but they get discovered. Okay, now. So that I think goes to the point of the routers that we're talking about. It being made in China or not, like, okay, fine. Like maybe you're protected against a very specific vector of those routers being, sent to your home and having pre-compromised software. But the activity of compromising the software on your router is something that, as they say in the Mythos materials, any advanced shop has. That's what they do. That it's just how the business works, and business is good. So I just want people to sort of calibrate themselves to these situations. Even in this other AI story, the premise is that advanced actors can do this already. The concern is that now everybody will be able to. But in terms of protecting us from China, give me a break. This is not going to be the problem. Anyway, that was my rant.
Well, so this is the continuation here of a story that we've talked about frequently as the last month or so, which is the increasingly stark scope creep of the laws that are trying to mandate user ID and gathering user information about its operating, and now encroaching on even operating systems like Linux. This, Alex, might be an interesting reveal. I don't know if you've heard of this or it's come across here, but this is from a website called TBO-TE Project. Okay, and this is an analysis that's been making rounds. It hasn't been specifically called out as being a fake analysis or something like that. It's actually being promoted in most cyber circles as being, a legitimate finding. Age verification lobbying, dark money, model legislation, and institutional capture. This investigation documents a national lobbying operation spanning corporate spending, think tank infrastructure, dark money networks, and competing model legislation templates. Meta spent a record $26.3 million on federal lobbying in 2025, deployed 86 plus lobbyists across 45 states, and covertly funded a group called the Digital Childhood Alliance to advocate for the App Store Accountability Act. But the operation extends beyond Meta. The Heritage Foundation funds 3 of 6 named DCA, Digital Child Alliance, coalition organizations, staffs the advocacy pipeline from Capitol Hill to state legislatures, and has merged leadership with another coalition member. A competing model bill takes a different approach, creating a 2-track legislative landscape where both tracks shift regulatory burden away from social media platforms. Snap, X, and Pinterest have joined Meta in supporting ASAA, the App Store Accountability Act. Every confirmed supporter is a social media platform. Every opponent operates an app store. The investigation traced funding flows across 5 confirmed channels, analyzed 2.0 billion in dark money grants, searched 59,736 DAF recipients, parsed LD2 filings, and mapped campaign contributions across 4 states to document this operation. The pattern extends internationally. Meta spent 10 million European currency, the euro, annually on EU lobbying, retains 18 plus consulting firms across jurisdictions, and uses at least 3 firms operating in both Brussels and Washington. In Brazil, Meta appeared at legislative hearings for PL 2628-2022, though Brazil's resulting law placed a burden on platforms directly. ICMEC, which authored the competing DAA model legislation aligned with Meta's interests, operates under severe financial distress, with Meta as a confirmed major donor. Over 30 jurisdictions introduced age verification bills within an 18-month window. The global investigation into Brazil and the United Kingdom documents 470 public sources showing how the same advocacy networks, funding pipelines, and verification companies operate across borders. Every finding is sourced from public records, IRS 990 filings, Senate LD2 lobbying disclosures, and state and EU lobbying legislation. So that's the introduction to the analysis, Alex. And the key takeaway from all of this is the idea that the social networks and other app companies are pushing the legislation to either get something at the app level or the operating system level that creates an API connection that allows them to tie into either the App Store information or the OS information by law in order to grab people's identification and be able to track them. That it is basically legislating a form of their spyware to be able to advertise to you better.
Look, I mean, we're going to sell you better stuff, whether you like it. That will be a fair motive.
If those assholes could actually give me an advertisement that was not for something I had just purchased a moment ago, I would be amazed. I literally will go buy something and then I will see the ads for it on.
They're busy buying all the AI scientists money can buy.
Okay.
So I assure you, they're working on it. No. Here's the thing. I think there's a deeper backstory to all this, which is that a while back, I don't know, a couple of years ago, maybe, perhaps even a little bit longer, Apple had put out a change in the way that their operating system works, which prevented companies like Meta from tracking people across the operating system.
Mm-hmm.
And that had a huge impact on Meta's bottom line. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not mistaken, what I suspect is happening is that this is Meta's attempt to end run this. And I think it's fascinating that they call this the App Store Accountability, whatever, right? It's telling you that it's targeting the App Store sort of vendors, right? The App Store monopolies, which is what, like Google and Apple. Yes. To, because Google doesn't need that to track you. They have you by the short and curlies in 100 different ways. Meta is in the more precarious position, which is why, by the way, they've been caught buying apps that are very popular, doing random things like tracking your internet speed or whatever, right? Just to get identifiers for people. So what Apple did was a huge sort of harm to Meta. And I think what's happening, again, like this is part of that double virtualized reality, right? Where you look at a piece of paper and you're like, oh, what's it about? Let me read it. Oh, it's about protecting children online. Oh, that's amazing. What it's actually about? Apple not allowing Meta to tie in people for ads. I mean, how much more distant can you get?
I would like to remind
what it's actually about and what it's claimed to be about.
I would like to remind that a early sort of Facebook/Meta, let's call it a trick, was to purchase a very popular VPN platform and then use it to track the user's behavior through that. So the Facebook bought a VPN platform and then used the VPN software that they had just acquired.
That's right.
in order to track individuals through that system, to basically get all of their internet traffic and see what they were up to. I mean, basically, Meta has made it the business to their business, paradigm. Their mission statement, let's say, is to track everything that a person does throughout their life. So,
and they're not alone. Their problem is that they don't own your phone, even though there was a Meta phone project at some point that didn't work out. They don't own your operating system, right? They have to work on Apple or Android or Windows or whatever. So they're ultimately still an application, right? And I do believe their whole investment in VR was to own the platform for the next iteration. So far has not panned out. But they have a big strategic problem is what I'm saying, in terms of being a rider on other people's coattails while trying to have some of the benefits that those other people have, like it or not, and they are structurally prevented from having it.
So I think we'll have to leave some more stuff on the cutting room floor. So much on the cutting room floor. Some of the things that are going to be left.
Please tell me we're going to cover our friend D4 Vendetta.
He's up here, but it's going to run a little long if we cover him. I mean, I got him.
All right, just look, just give the headline, and then we'll cover it next time. How about that?
All right. So D4VD, who is a young up and coming hot singer, really popular with the kids, they say, was just arrested this week. Now, he was arrested after 7 months of an investigation that seemingly was going nowhere. The history behind his current arrest this week was that a young girl had gone missing. She was 15 years old. She went missing 2 years ago. And a year after she was missing, she was found in D4VD, otherwise pronounced David, singer David, his Tesla vehicle in several pieces. She was not a whole person with a normal body any longer. She was dismembered and stuffed in the trunk of his Tesla vehicle, found in an impound lot, and had been there for some time. 7 months of investigation has gone on, and actually, oddly enough, we were talking about this story sort of when it broke and keeping up with it casually over time as new updates would come on. And the interesting aspect about this arrest, Alex, that we've been sort of anticipating for very long, is that it appears to be a play on the surface between the LAPD and the DA's office, because there has been a grand jury organized to investigate this character, David D4VD, and this murder of the young woman named Celeste Rivas. And the grand jury did not issue an indictment that led to his arrest. The LAPD did what's called a probable cause arrest, which means that some piece of information came across their view that gave them the ability to say, we have enough information to place this person under arrest. And now we have to ask the DA to charge them. So he is not yet charged with the murder that we anticipate he will be charged with.
I did not know this.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, people.
So the idea that is being speculated by some, like defense attorneys and people familiar with procedure like this, is that the LAPD has gotten tired of waiting for the state to take action. And this is a move that sort of forces their hand, so that it forces the state prosecutors to respond by saying there's not enough evidence to charge him with this murder, or there is enough. We were just, doing something to hope for a stronger case or something like that. So we will be charging. Like that's sort of the idea behind what's going on. But that is the interesting twist in the D4VD update this week, which is that he was arrested, but we are waiting till Monday to find out if they're going to actually charge him with the crimes that we are, we are alleging that he committed by killing this woman that he, if you haven't been following the case, also was dating underage. So he is in his 20s and she was 15 when she went missing. So that is your update in quick succession. There's your highlights, Alex, on the cutting room floor.
All right. I think this is the better show for having that last part in it. Jesus Christ, man. So bad.
So, yeah, I mean,
and with that,
it's bad, but it's from our show's perspective, Alex, because we arrived at covering this with no political angle. I think that the cluster and chaos of this unfolding has been fascinating to go through, just as we are watching a case that we don't specifically have any political attraction to unfold.
Well, I am noticing that we are developing our own little parallel universe. Like we're tracking the whole ghost printers issue.
Mm-hmm.
This one, if you are informed about the world from our show and nothing else, you are living in an alternate reality.
Well, I hope that gives people the ability to get out of a bubble a little.
A better one,
right? Oh, yeah, better bubble. Yes,
yeah,
but
that's right. That's right.
All right, Alex. As a quick aside, this shouldn't interrupt the shows coming forward, but I did finally get my my new jury duty notice. So in early May, I will be reporting for jury duty and doing my best to not get the day wrong and be late again and have them be mad at me. And so I will find out what type of case I am going to be adjudicating, and hopefully it's something interesting.
Yeah. Being in the jury with you would be quite an experience, Gator.
Well, that has been This Dumb Week. I hope everyone has a good week, although I do expect it to also be dumb. Alex, I hope you have an exceptionally dumb week, although also a good week at the same time.
Same to you, sir. And to everybody who's listening still, somehow.
See you next week.